fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got tracks and he's got with the outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no! That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God!
God, what?
What does it take to win? Is it something you're born with? Is it the grind? Every day. Gear up. Do battle. For the 10,000th time. Or is it pushing to your absolute limits? To be faster. Always faster. Insanely precise. Totally free and at one with the game. Or maybe it's just getting to that place where nothing else matters. Nothing in the way of winning.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in endorsed series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome along to the 2022 OSR Logitech G Bathurst 12-hour. We've set the grid, and now we're ready to race. 50 cars lining up for this one, or 52, I should say. 40 GT3 teams and 12 extremely strong GT4 combinations. This race has all the ingredients to be an absolute thriller. You'll see the first 3 hours live here on SimSpeed TV and the final 3 hours as well. Joining me for the start of this one, I've got Jake Sperry Express from the UK and Reese Gardner over in the Republic of Western Australia. Sperry, what is it for you, about 9:30 over in the UK?
Getting close now to 9:40. This is a really cool race, and this is what people don't quite understand when it comes to league racing and how important league racing really is to the communities out there of sim racing. Because an event like this that goes along, you have an official iRacing Bathurst 12-hour that comes along, and it's all really good, but it doesn't have the bells and whistles. It's just a straight, flat-out 12 hours. You push it to the end. You get something like this, you get the bells and whistles. You get safety cars that come out there. You get class racing. You get dedicated racing. The only thing I think that's probably missing here is the very, very loud and noisy Mark car. But aside from that, we're going to be in for a really cool 12 hours worth of racing today.
Yeah, you can bet your bottom dollar we are. And Reese, it's nice and early for you. Opposite end of the spectrum from Sperry. How many coffees deep are you?
Currently 0.3. I got up about 20 minutes ago, made myself a coffee, and that was it. I suspect I'll be 3 deep by the time we end our broadcast of the first 3 hours of this race. It's currently 5:40 a.m. for me over in Perth.
Well, last night was qualifying. We had GT4 and GT3 in two different groups. The GT4s headed out first, and they gave us a nice teaser ahead of that GT3 session. It was Falcon Racing 50, driven by Shane Van Gisbergen, that took the GT4 pole in the McLaren ahead of Madison Down for Trans-Tasman Racing number 77. Then the GT3s are out, and we surprisingly had just the one red flag across the 60-minute session. Josh Anderson was the pace setter for Vendaval, and the fight for the final spots in the top 15 shootout was immensely close, with 9.5 SimSport holding on by 5 thousandths of a second, while in pit lane. They were extremely bold not to do a lap right at the end of the session. In the shootout, Anderson held on to claim pole by 0.04 of a second from a stunning effort by Andrew Kyle for Altus Esports. And that brings us to race day. Here's how we line up for the start of 12 hours.
And what 12 fantastic hours we find ourselves with. It's Vendaval Sim Racing White who took the pole position then in the Porsche just ahead of the Logitech G Altus Esports 43 Ferrari. And it's Ferraris 2 and 3 as R1 Sim Sports lines up with the Falcon Racing BMW back there in 4th position. Vendaval's yellow car lines up then in 5th on row 3 with the first of the Synergy Sim Racing Smith & Son racing machines, the 88 as is tradition, finds itself in the field in a very strong position. Believe it or not, the 88 car is in 6th place. Then following that in 7th is the other, one of the other cars there, the 89 of Synergy Sim Racing, followed by the simrigs.com DPR Ferrari, as it is then all BMWs on the 5th row of the grid. And that finds itself with RSR Esports and Pursuit Sim Racing.
It's BMW and BMW row 6 as well. We've got 9.5 SimSport 951 starting alongside Evolution Racing Team 26. This field dominated by BMWs and Ferraris as it's an all-Ferrari 7th row. The 5-star Motorsport and XCM cars making up the 13th and 14th positions on the grid. Lisa Esports and Empower Summit Sim Sports, the 135 and the 55, they're going to line up in the 8th row of the grid. Then we've got the 64 Pulsar Chuka Toyota BMW starting alongside Trans-Tasman Racing 184, who had issues in qualifying yesterday. They weren't able to make the shootout despite showing the pace that meant they could. And finally, the top 20 spots on the grid rounded out by the 105 HBC Racing BMW and another Synergy car, the Smith & Sons Racing 27.
The first Mercedes in the field was back in 21st place. Flame Energy Racing, that was Kurt Stenberg at the wheel in qualifying. Alongside them, it's a BMW Synergy Sim Racing, Smith & Sons Racing Car 143. I believe that was the car that did an excellent flip worthy of the ski slopes in qualifying. And then it's row 12, TriStar Racing, 111, and Drop Bear Motorsport in Cozy. Mark 1 Esports and Velocity SimLab share an all BMW row 13 ahead of Torque Inc. Aggressor Racing and Iridium Sim Sports Blue on row 14. And row 15, it's simrigs.com DPR number 73 and Fishy Motorsport 808.
The BMWs seem to be the most populous of the machines as the Crisscross Racing 912 also go BMW as Australia Wide Racing Purple run a Ferrari there in what is going to be 32nd. You follow that up with Fishy Motorsports number 8 entry with Stone Cold Racing with the Mercedes there in 67th. You've got 9.5 with the 952 back there on row 18 with Twitchy Foot Racing 1. Then following that, the Pace Syndicate Alice car, along with Team JDR, and bookending what is the GT3 field, LL Racing, and the HJR Jinx Shifters 209 Ferrari.
That's the GT3 field done and dusted, and now we get into our much smaller but just as competitive GT4 field. Falcon Racing has put it on pole position in that class alongside Trans-Tasman Racing 77. Starting in the McLarens on the front row with Porsche all on the second row. It's the R8G guest car, the 888. Can't wait to see how those guys go, along with Evolution Racing Team 117. On the third row of GT4, it's going to be the second Trans-Tasman car, along with the Taipan Esports BMW M4. Meanwhile, HBAG Race on Oz will start alongside Team Jinx Shifters on the 24th row of the grid, 4th row of GT4, and it's going to be Analytical Race on Oz and Jinx Shifters again on row 25, the sister teams making their way through there. Our field will be rounded out by SSR Smith & Sons BMW in the GT4 class, along with the Drop Bear Motorsport SBM number 268. And that is your Bathurst 12-hour field, guys. I can't wait for this race to get going.
52 cars. It's going to be incredible. In the background, you can see the grid formation taking place, ensuring that everyone's in the right spot. And we'll have 3 formation laps behind the safety car. I just want to talk about that GT4 field because Sperry, for only 12 cars, it is so strong. We've got 2 Trans-Tasman Racing cars, an Evolution Racing Team car, the R8 G guest car is extremely fast. They're starting third in class. And then, of course, the Falcon racing machine of Van Gisbergen, Foster, and Newman. I mean, that could be some of the best battling in the entire field today.
It certainly could. And you sort of look at a field, and on paper you go, oh, there's only 12 cars in a certain class. You sort of immediately go and write that off. But that's not really what is happening here. I'd say that the better quality of field is there in GT4, and they're going to have a real tough time of things today because they're going to have to try and navigate and negotiate with these 40 GT3s who are definitely going to want to find a way through as lap traffic. And as we know, anytime there's traffic on the mountain, it's very, very difficult for everyone to come out unscathed.
Yeah, traffic is going to be the talking point of the day. Let's take a look at where that lap traffic might be able to get out of the way. And it won't just be GT4 cars. The slower GT3 cars will be getting lapped by the end of the race, that's for sure. Probably even multiple times. So, where can he get out of the way? Well, if you're a lapped car and it's the bottom of the mountain, you are going to be extremely happy because anywhere from the exit of Forest Elbow up to Griffin's Bend, you can get out of the way without too much drama. But once you exit Griffin's Bend and until you get to Forest Elbow, it is pretty much one lane only. And that area right there is a proper street circuit. It's a concrete canyon. And Reese, if you are a lapped car, you're better off not trying to get out of the way because if you do, then you become unpredictable. And that's when the crashes can happen.
Yeah, there's not much margin up at the top of the mountain for running offline. These corners are all so borderline in terms of the actual line through them, especially the section from Skyline down through the S's and the Dipper up to Forest Elbow. One place where you're going to see a major difference between GT3 and GT4 is actually the exit of the Dipper running up to the Elbow. The GT3s are going to exit that corner much faster, so if they're brave and the GT3 stays over to the right-hand side of the circuit, you might see some passes being made down there, but as you said, it's going to be way more difficult than just, oh, okay, here we go, I'm going to go by at this corner, and away you go. That's just not going to happen here.
Certainly not. So we've got about 26 minutes to the start of this race. Our 52 cars just moving into formation across the top of the mountain here. Here is, it looks like one of the safety cars actually, that colour scheme. It's actually number 50, not to be mistaken, but in the darkness of the night, it's going to be really hard to spot the liveries. This is Shane Van Gisbergen bringing his car to the start. And being very closely harassed by the Trinitazan racing car, Madison down. The driver that qualified the car, Sperry, is that the driver you put in for the start of the race? You want your fastest driver in at the start? Or is it a case of experience? Or are you just looking at your strategy and working backwards from who you want in at the end?
The first thing that I'm really looking at in terms of what you want from a driver is Gizzy plays a few games there with Madison down. Are you gonna let everything go so close? No, we're going to give ourselves some space. All right. But the sort of thing that you're looking at, it's a mixture of either, I would say it's a philosophy. If you want your fastest driver in first and, you know, get some good pace and track position early, I see that being really good. But what I'm looking for out of a driver is I want the most dependable driver who is the best at avoiding traffic, who is the best at avoiding accidents. And if you can put that driver in the car with a lot more ease and availability than someone else, then you've got yourself a very good opening hour. You don't want to be out of this race in the opening hour. You want to be in this race at the end. It starts by dealing with the most hectic part of the race, which is the opening hour of this.
In the darkness, 52 cars funneling their way up the mountain, the possibility for an incident is extremely high, and the possibility for a safety car is astronomical. Chances are we're going to see a safety car at some point today. Aside from sort of incident-driven safety cars, there is a chance for between 0 to 4 random safety cars as well, and that sort of mimics your echidnas of the real world, your kangaroos of the real world that sometimes happen onto the track and create those unexpected safety cars. Of course, we can't have any of those wildlife appearances in the sim, but that randomness of a safety car appearance, we'll factor that in as we try to keep this as close to real life as possible. There's R1 Sim Sports, the Ferrari, starting third on the grid. This is an extremely fast combination race, and one I'm going to be looking out for. John Piesnik, Reese Gasul, Cameron Stubber, and Luis Paulo Gallen. Your thoughts?
Oh, wow, yeah, hearing the driver lineup for that car, I think they are definitely a contender for victory here today. I mean, I recall, you know, the many broadcasts we've done together, Ryan, back when the Oceanic Sprint Championship was running in GT3, and John Piesnik, Reese Gasul, Cameron Stubber, and the like, they were incredibly fast in GT3 cars, and, well, you know, putting the laps in as they undoubtedly have, they'll definitely be a contender today. But they are up against quite a few very big crews. Not only are they having to work with Vendaval cars behind the Falcon Racing entry, but they also have Vendaval and Logitech G Altus Esports on the front row. It is definitely an all-star field here if you're talking about drivers from AusNZ.
Going a little bit further back, you mentioned in the grid lineup that Trans-Tasman 184 had some issues in qualifying. Ross Rizzo was at the wheel for qualifying, and we probably expect this car to be inside that top 15. I thought for sure we'd see this car in the shootout. We didn't, and so they're starting from position 18, I think, from memory. Michael Healy joins Ross Rizzo, and also Emily Jones. So it's a very strong combination, one that we should see inside the top 10. Maybe even the top 5 come the end of this race, but there's been some more issues for one of those drivers this morning in the Porsche Esports Super Cup. Sperry.
Yeah, there certainly has, and Emily Jones, by no stretch of the imagination, is one of the most recognisable drivers out there when it comes to the world of sim racing on iRacing. That's why she finds herself racing in the quote-unquote streamer division of the Porsche Esports Super Cup. And when leading the race, having a really strong fight with Tony Kanaan, she found herself with a shifter issue out there on track, and basically it dropped her way down the order as she tried to deal with it. Now, it's not going to be an easy fix. It's not a case like it would be, say, in the real Bathurst 12 hours, where if you had an issue with the gearbox and the gears and the shifting, that you bring it into pits, you can fix it before the race and get yourself going again. Getting spare parts is really, really difficult for sim racing, and you need to have money in your back pocket to do so, and time. You're not going to do it in that short space of time. So I'd expect maybe Emily Jones to come in later during this race, maybe in the downtime hours as the sun starts to get high in the sky. I think that's when we're going to see her. Outside of that, that team's going to have to man the fort, so to speak, there with Ross Rizzo and co, and really make sure that they keep a car in this one until Emily Jones is able to start driving.
In the GT4 session race, we saw this come to light. The GT4s only got a 30-minute session, and they were disrupted by a red flag roughly halfway through. And one of the teams I think really caught out by that was Synergy Sim Racing Car 14. Michael Schreier, Damien Johnstone, and Scott Nolan. And Schreier was the man at the wheel. We saw him make a mistake on his first and his second flying lap, and as a result, when the red flag came out, he didn't have a lap time to his name, and the track was only getting hotter as the session went on. So as a result, he finds himself on the final row of the grid, and he is going to be starting that car. So he'll have himself to blame as he tries to dig out of that hole. The issue with burying yourself like that race in qualifying is, even though it's a 12-hour race, as I said, the potential for drama early on is so high that even if you can still win it from the back of the grid, you've got to avoid the carnage in front of you.
Exactly right. They've got a full GT3 field up ahead of them in this GT4 class, and if there's any issues in the GT3 midfield on lap 1, if there is a pile-up, God forbid, certainly race control will be quickened, bringing out the safety car, but the GT4 field are going to have to try and negotiate the fallout of whatever incident happens in front of them. So if I'm Michael Schreier and I'm starting off the back of the grid, I've got to remember, it's a 12-hour race, and there's plenty of opportunities to make up time along the way. There's undoubtedly going to be more safety car periods throughout the race, so you might as well take it easy in those first few laps, make up positions if you can, but don't sweat the small stuff.
So, as we prepare for the start of this one, we've brought you the summary, we've brought you, hopefully, some of the hype. 19 minutes to the start, pace car rolls out in 9 minutes time. We've got a special interview coming up for you as we head out on our formation laps. As we get ready for the start of this race, stay tuned to SimSpeed TV, it's going to be a cracker.
When I'm driving an F1 car, steering wheel feedback is one of the most important things. It helps me decide when to brake and how hard. It's how I feel the surface of the road. Every bump in the terrain, every wheel slip. If my tyres are starting to lose grip, I can sense that immediately. When I'm driving in a sim, I need that same tactility, that level of detail I have in a real car.
Racing games have come a long way in the last 20 years. Nothing's really changed in how we approach force feedback in all that time. Cutting-edge sims are now so realistic, drivers across all disciplines are using them for training. Our main goal when designing True Force was to improve the number of sensations that you actually feel, to put you better in contact with the car that you're driving so that you can improve your performance and that enjoyment of driving on a track. The physical feedback needs to be more immediate or accurate, or a player loses immersion or control.
Game developers are still having to recreate their force feedback from a set library of effects instead of deriving it from real-time modelling.
True Force is special because it levels the playing field for PC and console gamers. You're now getting the extra level of precision and detail that you need, regardless of which platform is your choice. This is not just iteration, it's total evolution. True Force force feedback works differently. It hooks directly into the physics engine of the game. Games already calculate the forces on the tyres and the steering wheel. The True Force algorithm is able to process this data at up to 4,000 times a second. It will even use the game's audio engine and pass it directly on to the driver.
We spend a lot of time as audio designers trying to make each car sound unique and as realistic as we possibly can. Being able to integrate the audio into the force feedback is something that we've wanted to do for a long time, and True Force enables us to do that. And the ability to send the audio to the wheel, to have it respond and vibrate with the loss of traction, really increases my ability to give that immersion to the player.
You can sense the changing surface of the road. You'll be able to feel if the back end of the car is losing grip.
The first time we had it running in the build, could feel the wheel humming and vibrating as we revved the engine. Our immediate reaction was it really adds another level of immersion.
The first thing you're going to feel with a True Force wheel is the engine note. The minute the engine starts in the game, you will know exactly which car you are driving. True Force is the beginning of something new. This is now the foundation for all wheels that we'll produce in the future. This extra level of information gives everyone all the information they need to learn how to control their car better. True Force benefits any racing fan looking for a more realistic driving experience.
Because winning is all about feeling.
Welcome back. Just a few minutes away from the start of this one. And it's not the only Bathurst 12-hour coming up. This is, of course, the Oceanic Sim Racing Bathurst 12-hour, thanks to Logitech G. But very soon is the official iRacing Bathurst 12-hour. And as safety car prepares to roll around at the head of the field for the formation laps, let's talk to the man that's driving that safety car, Mr. Tyler Bowen. He's leading the field to the start for this one, and for good reason, as he's preparing to do that official iRacing Bathurst 12-hour solo in support of Beyond Blue.
Yes, indeed, and we'll have a chat to him now. Goodness me, Tyler, what an incredible feat that would be, crossing the line at the end of a 12-hour race solo. Can you give us a quick rundown of how you're going to conduct it?
Pretty much I'm just... Oh, hi there, guys. Hi, everybody's watching. Really, it's just going to run my own race. Just, yeah, trying to go through the carnage at the start and just, yeah, keeping a nice, smooth rhythm and consistency. Yeah, it's just one of those things I wanted to challenge myself this year. And what better way than support a good cause like Beyond Blue. Yeah.
And how are you going to be supporting that cause? I did read that you'd be donating $1 for every lap that the leader completes in your split.
That is correct. So every lap the leader does, because it's such a crazy... I got Mike in my ear, sorry.
All good.
Yeah, every lap the leader does in the session, I'll donate $1. I just wanted to give back, and I just can't believe the response from the iRacing community, especially the Australian and New Zealand side with it all. It's been absolutely amazing. Mike reached out yesterday saying he wanted to donate towards it, and just was pretty much speechless by everybody that's been involved and this opportunity that I've been given, especially being in this event last year. It was just an absolutely amazing event. Unfortunately, I wasn't meant to be here, so yeah, and then I got the call up, so yeah, can't complain with that.
Certainly not. So how are your preparations going for taking on the Bathurst 12-hour solo? I did notice in your post in various Facebook groups, people giving you tips on how best to negotiate a 12-hour race solo. You did touch on it briefly at the start of this little chat we're having, but I guess focus is the main thing that you're going to be trying to prepare for racing around Bathurst.
That's for sure. Like I personally did 12 hours yesterday in a test session, and that was just, I don't know how the professionals in real life do it. I'm doing half the feeling, and all I'm feeling is the wheel and the pedals, and it's after probably 11 hours it just gets absolutely painful. It's a big ask. You don't get much downtime to it. I got tunnel vision for a minute there. It's absolutely crazy, especially like a track around Bathurst. It's just, you got to be on it mentally. Yeah. Sorry, I just got Mike in the ear again.
All good. You have your duties to balance here, being the safety car driver for the start of this race. Well, you talk about how it's a big ask. Well, it's a big cause that you're supporting. How will people be able to donate if they want to?
If just donate directly to Beyond Blue themselves. I just thought instead of going through any sort of third-party thing, just donate there, and give me either a PM on my Facebook page, Vertex Imagery, and go from there. And I'll put a tally at the end of the race next week, and see how we all go. But at the moment, people have already been generous. Before even putting a lap through, already got $175. Which is just absolutely, pretty amazing.
Certainly is. Well, we will we'll let you get back to your safety car duties, Tyler Bowen, and our big kudos to you for this cause that you're supporting, for this feat you're going to try and attempt, once again, doing the Bathurst 12-hour, the official iRacing Bathurst 12-hour solo in support of Beyond Blue. Thanks very much, Tyler Bowen, and all the best.
Thanks, guys. I really do appreciate the chat. Have a good day, eh? Yeah. Thanks, guys.
We will certainly try our best.
So, as I cast my eye through the field with 2 formation laps remaining, I'm seeing that the majority of the teams, Sperry, have elected to start their qualifying driver. After that conversation we had, it's the driver that they've deemed the fastest going in at the start, and I guess that means because they've, I don't know what I'm saying. Fast equals experience normally in iRacing, and so they've elected to start them. One notable change is Jared Filsell is in the Falcon Racing car, number 69, starting from 5th place. That was qualified by Cooper Murray.
Yeah, he is, and that's definitely not a bad switch to have. Jared Filsell, probably one of the most recognisable names out there when it comes to the Australian scene. And if you got someone like him in the car, then by all means put him in there, see how he goes and see how he really pushes for some great laps. But what is going to be quite telling is how drivers elect to use their warm-up laps here around this circuit. They get 3 of them because they've been sat on the grid for nigh on almost half an hour, those cars up at the front of the field. So when you get that into some consideration, that the cars at the front have had their tyres completely turned to ice, there's no tyre warmers with the way that this all sets out, they've really got to use these 3 laps, get some heat back into the tyres, because it is going to be a very treacherous couple of laps when they get themselves going and they don't have the full feel of the tyres in what are very cold night conditions. They'll be sort of praying for the first couple of hours to turn up here, Ryan, so that they can get some heat in those tyres and can get that opportunity to start getting the ball rolling.
22-degree track temp at the moment. We're expecting them to be racing in darkness here for about 45 minutes as that sun begins to rise. And there are a few rules that they need to be aware of. So the minimum driver number is 3. You've got to have 3 drivers in your team. Some teams have got 4 drivers. If you've got 3 drivers, the minimum they can do is 25% of the race, and the max they can do is 40% of the race. 4-driver team has a minimum of 20% and a maximum of 35%. The other rule is how much driving you do at one time. For the GT3 drivers, you can't do any more than 65 laps in one go, and you must be out of the car for 25 laps between your stints. The GT4 maximum is 85, needing that same 25 lap rest break. There it is on your screen for those who are more visual learners, like myself. Basically, Reese, it means that once we get to about 64 laps to go, our team's going to start thinking about putting their main driver back in to go to the end.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to suss out, isn't it? The fact that, you have, despite these very strong driver lineups in the majority of the field, often you will have the case of one driver being slower than another or thereabouts. So, yeah, that's what the teams are going to have to think about. I honestly don't know what the best kind of strategy would be around the Bathurst 12 hour in terms of, trying to balance that pace and selecting which driver to put in towards the end. But I would say that you want your strongest driver in the car for the end of the race, because that's where the money is made. That's where the pace advantage or disadvantage can make all the difference.
Yeah, there's going to be plenty of varying strategies playing out over the course of this race. It's going to be really hard to really get a proper judgment of where everyone truly sits until we get into that final stint. And of course, when you do have varying strategies, it means that some teams are going to be massively advantaged, some teams are going to be massively disadvantaged if and when safety cars come out. And that's the other one. You can plan as much as you like, but if you catch a safety car at the wrong time, you've got to play catch-up. And at some point today, Sperry, in all likelihood, at some point, even our most front-running cars are going to be on the back foot.
Yeah, that's most likely. This is going to be a strategy game dependent on those safety cars, and They could come at any point of any time for any driver in the field, or of course the random element that could potentially go there if we're green for a little bit too long. But the understanding is the best way to win a race like this is having the ability to be fluid with your strategy. The more open and more options you leave yourself and get yourself further through this race, the more likely you're going to be in a position to not lose out when the stops come in. That's the big key. That's something they've got to be alert to. What I am also going to be alert to is the fact that when these drivers come around and get their laps all sorted and put themselves into position as they start to line up here, double file, it's going to take a while for everyone to get there and reach. I'm looking at the GT4 field right now, and they're only just coming up towards the top of the mountain. We're halfway down the mountain straight right now with the leader.
Indeed we are. It's going to be a long affair. 12 hours is the timed distance, but in terms of laps, about 315. That's what we're expecting. So plenty of tours around this Mount Panorama circuit. You just caught a glimpse of those GT4 cars all strung out across the top of the mountain. Van Gisbergen's exiting Forest Elbow now. But all eyes for the start on the GT3 cars. Joshua Anderson and James Scott at the wheels on the front row. It's an all McLaren. Well, that's a GT4 front row is all McLaren. The GT3 front row is a Porsche up against a Ferrari. Safety car is in. 12 hours at the mountain. Joshua Anderson in control of the field as we come out of Murray's Corner. The 2022 OSR Logitech G Bathurst 12-hour is green, and it is a very good start for your front row. Anderson immediately moving in ahead of James Scott, and they'll go single file the top three. Peasnick almost lost it. That's going to be a big checkup on the exit. Burton and Boyd getting into each other. Pretty messy. There's the spinner in the background you spotted, Reese. The GT4's not be far away now, Sperry.
No, they certainly aren't, and already off at the start, you can see the GT4's not really too much room given, but it's 4 away from the field. Hampstead in the Tasman 92 basically drops back, so as they make the charge up through, you got Madison down on the back of Shane Van Gisbergen, you got Vlad Kimichev there for R8G's guest, who's going to sweep around the outside and try and take second here at Griffin's Bend. He's going to be able to manage to do that for the moment. And then in fourth, you've got Rainer Costello for the Evolution Racing Team 117. This is some great fighting as Kimichev there gets the job.
And this is that big wad of cars. Peasnick almost spun at turn 1. He got away with it, but it caused a big checkup. There was a bit of nose-to-tail contact behind him and on his bumper. And he is got to do his best job to not look in his mirrors too much. Just focus on the track ahead of him and not compound his errors as the tyres, the drivers come up to temperature early on.
Yeah, just to go over that turn 1 incident briefly. Jared Filsell got tapped by the number 82 Vendeval car of Jake Burton, and that's what sparked off the drama at turn 1. And then Brennan in the Ferrari behind, he spun by himself, Michael Brennan for 5 Star Motorsports. So we stay green for the first lap, no safety car as of yet. The incident wasn't big enough, but it is going to be Vendeval Sim Racing White who lead the way here coming through the final turn.
Yeah, really good start for our top 2 cars, our front row. Vendeval Sim Racing White from Logitech G Altus Esports. Ooh. Bit of a grass on entry there for Anderson. Got to be a bit careful not to make a silly mistake early on, as it is a bit harder to spot all your reference points in the darkness. Only the headlights to illuminate this Mount Panorama circuit. It's not too much of an issue when you're in the middle of the pack. When you're the very first car and there's only 1 car behind you, there's not much illumination out there. As into pit lane on lap 1, Jared Filsell, one of our favourites.
You need only look. Yeah, look, you need only look at the rear wing there as he was driving down through. That's given him not much hope going through. Now, the good news is we just saw a car there run very wide through the cutting, is that they have 1 fast repair in this series. in this 12 hours. So if it does go wrong for them, they do have one opportunity to get back out there and keep racing, and that is a used fast repair that we're hearing. So now here's the challenge. It's just like any other Bathurst 12 hour. You've got to do it clean now from here.
Yeah, you did not want to take that spare car at the very start of the race if you forced into that. And that would have come from that nose-to-tail contact out of turn 1, I suspect.
On the way in.
On the way in fact. So, even before that.
Yes.
But there's a bit of damage as well to the sister Vendaval car on the rear end, Jake Burton. It's not substantial, it's not massive, but it is there. So, he won't be too pleased with that. Looking at Wayne Burke in the BMW, just shadowing him towards the chase, in the shadows as well. No one's going to take too many risks early on in this 12 hour. Very surprised we've gotten through the opening 2 laps without a major incident. Goes to show the talent of the field out there, and good to see some sensible racing happening early on. As we look back to the GT4 field, it is much tighter here than it is in the GT3s early on. Vlad Kimichev, R8G guest Triple Eight, looking for a move on Shane van Gisbergen. McLaren up against Porsche. And does Kimichev go for it at the chase? No, he doesn't. Just going to sit behind it.
Absolutely, and you sort of see in that sort of situation, it's a case of, well, how aggressive do you want to be on the mountain and coming down it? Now, the issue that they're going to have in the next couple of moments is one of the drivers who's just come back out of the pits, Jared Filson, on the Falcon racing car. He's making his way through this, and this is pole position, which makes life very, very difficult. They're going to have to coordinate here, move out of the way in terms of their battles, and if they are able to manage that, then they can just focus on what they need again. It's the easy bit here right now, because they're on this very quick straight. Just a bit of a comparison then in terms of top speed. You're going to see Shane van Gisbergen as he runs through. He's just hitting 200 Ks now. Jared Filson, by comparison, he's got 40 kilometers an hour. It's different. 20 when he made that pass by as he hits the brake. So that is the sort of difference makers that you get on the mountain, is that brake horsepower very much is king.
Looking up the order, looking at the 135, Les Esports, and car behind them, Empower Summit. These were 2 cars that were fighting to get inside the top 15 in the shootout yesterday. It's been a pretty good start for both of these cars. They're both up about 6 or 7 spots, so making early progress. And I'll tell you who else has moved up a long way. Bradley Vaughan from Pursuit Sim Racing. That car started 30th. They're now 9th.
What a great run through the field it's been there for the Pursuit squad, and I wouldn't expect anything less. They are one of those teams that's certainly been going up the ranks in the AusNZ Sim community. Their V8 Scops squad is one of the best out there, and they've got some great drivers on board with them, showing their worth here to start off the race. And, you know, often the adage is, you know, endurance racing, it is a long race. You can't afford to be too aggressive in the opening stages, but this looks like more of a controlled aggression and taking advantage of other people's mistakes, which is exactly what these guys need early on. They've got track position, and that's what counts.
It's looking at the gap between the top 2 at the moment, Josh Anderson and James Scott. Scott was actually a couple tenths quicker on that previous trip around the circuit, so he's certainly not letting Anderson skip away too easily early on here. The gap between them, it's 0.8 of a second at the moment. And then it's 4 seconds back to John Piesnik. So that one little error at turn 1 has put him straight away out of touch with the top 2. It's not a massive issue. He'll get that ground back at some point, whether it's through a safety car or strategy or just pure pace. But early on, Piesnik probably more on the back foot than anything else. Luckily for him, he's broken free of some of that stranglehold the cars behind had. Jack Boyd sitting off his bumper now. Jake Burton, Wayne Burke, Andrew Dyson, Oscar Coper, all sitting in line as well.
And this is the key that you see again. You know, you're in a race, you've lost the gap to the top 2, and you just sit back and go, well, my race is not going to be defined by the first 6 and 7 minutes of this race. My race is going to be defined by 12 hours, and as such, You don't need to go out there. You don't need to be aggressive. Now, here's the 89 Synergy car looking to get past the Vendaval 82. It's not going to have it just yet because you're in the early stages. You're trying to feel the conditions here. It's cold. We're in night or early morning conditions. It's going to get hotter as this race goes on. And some drivers would have set up this car for different conditions as well. Some will have set this car up to be really lightning and electric here in these cold conditions. But as the track warms up, some drivers will be banking on the fact that this track's going to get hot. It's going to get to 40 degrees, maybe 50 degrees, and set up their tyre pressures accordingly so that it gives them an advantage in the hot conditions.
Just tearing as well. There's going to be no further action between the 69 and the 82, the contact that forced the 69, the Falcon Racing car, to take its spare car on lap 1. That'll be good news for the 82. That car, in fact, is Vendaval Sim Racing Yellow. Alexander Bird, Jake Burton at the wheel at the moment, and Nick Ledecky, the other driver in that combination. So Burton escapes one there.
Yeah, that is quite lucky. I suppose Race Control have taken the view that it was a lap 1 incident, and it didn't seem like there was too heavy contact between the cars, maybe just a slight miscommunication between the drivers. So play on, but the drivers of the number 69 probably won't be too happy with that. It has cost them their fast repair. They're going to have to take extra care over the course of this race. Also some news on the 255, the 5-star motorsports car. Michael Brennan spun out of turn 1 on lap 1, and it seems that car has taken some damage because they've put Jason Cooper in the car now. He's just cleared these GT4 guys who are battling very hard for the lead still as we speak. That R8G guest car really hammering the back of the Falcon Racing McLaren. Vlad Kimichev doing a very good job right now.
Well, aren't they going to be in trouble, though, because of their driver swap?
Potentially. Maybe. I don't think so.
Unless I'm reading the rules wrong. Like, wasn't it supposed to be that drivers had to stay in for a minimum amount for their stint or something like that?
No. They had to be out of the car. They had to be out of the car for a minimum of 25 laps, not including the start of the race. They had to be in the car for a maximum of 65 for GT3 cars and 85 for GT4 cars.
So there's a max but no min. Got it.
Correct. It's a bit to get your head around, but it's all there to create a fair share rule, and it's very close to the real life rules as well. I was laughing a minute ago at the graphic for the GT4 lead battle. It was a bit unfair. Battle for 40th, it said, but they're in fact scrapping for the lead, and Kimichev's still showing quite a lot of patience in there behind Van Gisbergen. We're currently looking at Jake Burton, looking backwards from him as he sees out his rearview mirror Wayne Burke for Synergy Sim Racing car 89. He's driving with Tom Freer and Luke Rosella in this race. That's another pretty strong combination. I mean, I've got to say, most of the combinations are really strong. We had to whittle the field down to 50 in the first place race. We had over 65 odd cars in GT3 trying to make this race, and in the end, only 40 GT3 cars could make it.
Yeah, that tells you something about how popular this event has become. It was originally run as a one-off event last year to sort of replace the real-life Bathurst 12 Hour, which unfortunately did not run in 2021. And certainly the support for this event in the community has been huge. I remember Michael Korolev on the Locked On Lads podcast just a few weeks ago. He was saying it's quite surprising how much interest there was as this is a pass being made. That's Evolution Racing Team number 26 making their way past 4 position, and they'll be up into 9th now, I believe.
In terms of the length of the race, I said it was going to be somewhere between 300 and 315 laps. The record is 314 laps. That was set in 2020. the final running of the Bathurst 12 hour
For
in
now.
real life. Yeah, for now. Hopefully back in May, I think, this year. They've rescheduled it to 1,938 kilometers of racing that was. Which suggests it's not... Yeah?
No, go ahead. It's just the sort of thing where, like, you get a long amount of racing and the laps tick off, and a long race is predicated by it being a clean race as well. And that's the key to these sorts of races. Of course, in terms of how these drivers all go about their business, it's been nice and clean to start. It's exactly what we love to see, because this is an elite field. We have got drivers who, effectively, when you say in iRacing here, Ryan, what is the one track that you will practice more than any other track out there, it doesn't matter what kind of vehicle, you practice this one, because this is the Holy Trinity. This is the Holy Grail of Australian tracks, and if you can master this track, you can master almost any other track out there on the service, because you'll pinpoint accuracy that you need when half of the lap, if you stray a half an inch out of line, your race is over. You have to be alert, and that's why you're seeing so many drivers just absolutely being calm, playing by the rules of the road, so to speak, and just, okay, it's single file, we don't overtake until we pass the double yellow lines that are out there in the middle of the road that are imaginary, and we can make those passes. It's very much processional right now, but I do expect it to get a little bit more antsy the moment traffic starts to play a part.
They won't be far away, because the leaders are starting to come up on the rear of our GT4 field now. Number 36 just coming up on the 268 and catching up on them coming down Mountain Straight. This is going to be quite difficult, actually. It's going to be easy to make the pass here on the Drop Bear SBM car on the way into the cutting, but once you're past the cutting, it's pretty much single file.
And this is where things start to really get interesting. If Anderson gets held up here by Aaron Gilbert, that's great news for James Scott, who's fallen away just a little bit. Up the inside at Metal Grate goes Josh Anderson. And as a GT4 car, you've got to be careful that when the GT3s do make that sort of move, you don't throw yourself offline and into the fence trying to get out of the way. Just hold your line and trust they'll stick it by you without any drama.
The best thing you can do if you're GT4 out there and you're racing, and it goes for any lap traffic, is just to firstly A, hold your line, and B, where you can, take the racing line and drive as if you're naturally driving. You know, if the car's quicker, it's going to naturally find its way through, and you're not going to be in too much trouble by the time you get there. That being said, you get a big battle pack like this going, this is a GT3's worst nightmare. Trying to get past 1, 2, 3, 4 cars in a row, and not in a very quick space of time. This is where incidents can occur, and for this group, I've been very interested to see how the R8G 888 car's been doing as we go on board. Then just behind that to Madison Down in the Trans-Tasman Racing at 77. Boss is in car. You see a little look there from the 888 car there, Ryan, and he's definitely lifting out through these straights, not wanting to press, not wanting to get things working. That means that if you don't want to make that move on Shane van Gisbergen, who, for those who don't know, is a lot closer affiliated to Oceanic sim racing than a lot of people realise. It's not just a case of, oh, he just turned up for a drive. He's a lot closer than people think. You understand what you're trying to do. I think that 888 car is trying to save itself a couple of laps worth of fuel.
Yeah, and if you can save 1 lap of fuel every stint, that can be a big benefit at the end of the race. As we see Dylan O'Shea slipping by Jesse Butler there. That's the battle for 23rd place. Simrigs.com DPR is Dylan O'Shea now at the head of this little group. And Jesse Butler representing Mark Watt Esports. There's a third car in there, that's Velocity Sim Labs, Lachlan Capel.
Doing quite well to keep it clean in these opening stages. These guys will start coming up
on the outside of the cutting. There he is.
Dear.
That's Sean McNamara for 9.5 Sim Sport.
Oh, God. Yeah, there we go.
Jake Edwards for Crisscross Racing. That was the man that came through and collected him there. Didn't know much about that car on the outside of the cutting. And McNamara is going to have to come in and take his spare car, and he's got drama. He's fired it into the fence at under the tree as well.
If you can't get that back, that's a safety car. I think it's desperately trying to get it back, but I don't think there's any steering left in that BMW. That was so unfortunate there, Ryan, in terms of that situation, because the one thing you're told when you have an accident is you have to hold your brakes, and that is always the biggest challenge out there is you put yourself into play. We do apologise, we weren't necessarily able to bring you that replay brought to you by the Virtual Racing School, but what was really key to that incident is that he thought he had a gap there, did Sean? Went to go and reverse and bring that car in, got himself pretty much spread eagle across the track, and that was awkward from that point onwards.
He did it all by himself.
Yeah.
He just fired in with a little bit too much speed, and the rear end slowly got away from him until he backed it into the fence. He was running 11th at the time.
It's a shame there for Sean. But easy to do in these dark conditions. This is how it went down. Just lost the rear by himself, and at this point he was off the racing line. Everyone could make their way past him okay, but you'll see this gap come up, and Sean will attempt to try and recover it. Unfortunately, just not enough time to really get it done.
Yeah, he tried to do a bit of a flick spin there, didn't he? But he couldn't get the revs up, and the car just almost stalled out on him.
I think it's more there, Ryan, the sense that those GT3 cars have a form of traction control as he dives down into the pits. The one thing that a lot of drivers forget when they're trying to flick spin a car back together in GT3 is that they forget to switch off the traction control, which makes that a lot easier. Suddenly you just get a lot of grip in the tyres as the traction control fights against the rears trying to come around, and then all of a sudden you're looking pretty foolish in those low revs.
Just watching Ben Christensen get round up on top of the mountain by some GT3s. All these cars have already made their way by him.
The 36 has lost the gap to the 43 behind thanks to negotiating all this traffic. They're just on Conrod Straight now. And oh, this is going to be interesting for Altus Esports. Side by side coming into the chase. That is not optimal at the best of times, but it looks like they've just managed to scrape by. But that is the 36's initial advantage at the start of the race completely eliminated. It's back on for the lead.
And into the pit lane there, just next to Altus Esports, is Luke Mitchinson for Analytical Race on Aussie Esports. Car on its lid. This will be a safety car. That's at Forest Elbow, Chop Bear, SBM, Tom Wilkinson at the wheel. Co-driving with Simon Mizomo.
Wow. How on earth did that happen? It looks like it might have been contact with a GT3, but it was actually all started with Tom Wilkinson, I think, getting a bit of oversteer on. You'll see it here. The GT3 comes up behind him, but on the entry to Forest Elbow, there's a little slide, and he goes back across the track. The GT3 makes contact with him, and that's just unfortunate that the car ended up on its roof from that hit.
Nothing that
safety car deployed.
The GT3 could do about that, and there's a safety car, as we expected. It was Ashley Lear for Torque Inc.
And this is a really interesting situation here, Ryan, because we're about 20 minutes in, and this is the first real chance, I would say, that you have the ability to switch your strategy. If you were, say, 2/3 the way down the pack in the GT3 field, I would consider coming in and making a stop right now. Get yourself up and topped up on fuel, put yourself on a different strategy to everybody else, and work from that point onwards, because any time you can take a bit of fuel out of the car, go out there and really make something happen, you're sorted. This is the first time to deviate you can on strategy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens here. We're riding on board with Josh Anderson. He's sort of stuck at the moment behind Matty Jones, and that's allowed James Scott to close right up to him. Do they dive to pit lane? Do they stay out there? I would say you could have dived to pit lane in this instance. Anderson will not do so. James Scott will, though. A very late call for Scott
too
to
as
pit.
well. I just want to point out Rainer Costello in the GT4 category.
Right you are. Evolution Racing team. Always worth keeping an eye on what that team is doing. Usually pretty strat savvy.
But here's the issue as well, though. I just want to jump in on this point. The fact that the GT4 Evolution Race Team cars dived into the pits, they're going to lose the lap.
Yeah, they'll come out behind the overall leader by a lap. Yeah, they will indeed. So, that could be difficult for them going on into the race.
Yeah, because Van Gisbergen, Kimichev, Madison Down, Richard Hampstead, Matty Jones are all ahead of the safety car. So that's 5 GT4s that are going to remain on the lead lap and almost be an entire lap ahead of Evolution Racing Team. And the rest of the GT4s that had been lapped.
It's amazing what this race can do. Immediately then, we see a couple drivers splitting strategy and some being on the wrong side, I would say, of that call. This is why also it does pay to be patient and don't just throw the car in the pits immediately. If you wait an extra lap, sometimes you will get rewarded, especially when you know that you're 2 minutes behind and you're going to be spending an extra lap or so going at 85, 90% throttle. Yes, you can't overtake, but you'll give yourself that gap to allow yourself the pit stop. You don't have to take a pit stop on the first lap when a caution comes out. You can take it at any time during that caution period.
Got to wait for the field to bunch up as well under the safety car, so almost guaranteed a couple of laps behind the Logitech G Porsche pace car. Nick Parker at the wheel at the moment.
Oh, and I've
I've
just looked at those GT4s who are leading. Kimichev is the only one who's deciding to stay out right now. Everybody else has decided to make the call to dive down into the pits because it's a free stop.
Yep. That right there is the benefit of waiting a lap. If they'd pitted the same lap as Evolution Racing Team, they'd also be essentially a lap down. But they've waited a lap, now they get a free stop. And I think this is probably a misplay from Kimichev and the 888 team. The other factor to consider is tyres. You probably don't want to be taking tyres after just a 15-lap stint. You can equally double stint your tyres over a full-length stint as well. We are seeing some driver swaps. Lee Ellis is hopping in to replace Madison Down in the 77 for Trans-Tasman Racing. Looks like Van Gisbergen's staying at the wheel. So is Richard Hampstead. And Matty Jones going to be the first car out.
Good pit stop there from the Taipan Esports crew. Seems that they haven't put as much fuel in the car. So that will be certainly to their benefit, but once they get back racing, they're going to be facing a lot of pressure from the likes of Van Gisbergen, Ellis and Hampstead.
Yeah, that could be a bit of a bottleneck off the start for those GT4s. We'll have to see how that plays out. And James Scott, remember he pitted for Altus Esports. Well, the end result, as I see XCM diving the pit lane as well with Jason Bentz, is that Scott is now well back in the pack and in a bit of a danger zone where incidents may happen around him and he may have to try and dodge them. He crosses the line and he is 15th.
It's not bad. I'd say coming in, pitting, coming back out in 15th position, it's not necessarily the end of the world. You lose a bit of time on track position, but the key is your off-kiltron strategy. If that ends up being that you've saved 20 minutes at the end of the race, you know, the question's going to be, are you still in a position where you're going to leapfrog some drivers by making that stop? I think they've got the pace to come back through the field. The next question I'd ask outside of that pace is how are they going to manufacture their way through the field to make all of that strategy work worthwhile? That's going to be the joy of what we see over the next 2.5 hours here with SimSpeed.
Just seeing the lap down cars getting a wave around here, and this will be a get out of jail free card for Evolution Racing Team. Now Kimichev has decided to pit. He may get away with this. He would have been blazing around at full speed. I don't think he caught the pack, so he may have got away with it. Let's see where he rejoins as Matty Jones for Taipan Esports comes up to Murray's corner. We're still seeing racing under the safety car here.
Yeah, we had 3 cars go into the pits that time. Ben Christensen and the Team Jinx Shifters 51, and in the XCM GT3, Jackson Schaub has taken over from Jason Bentz. I'm not too sure what the deal was with the 51 at pit exit, but he did come to a stop, which delayed the exit. Pit exit was closed at the time. So that's a little bit of extra time lost that they will very easily gain back under these caution conditions.
Imichev jumped to the front of the GT4 field. So really good idea from him to pit a lap later. And now R8G Guest are the leading GT4 team. And that Evolution Racing Team GT4 car had stayed on the lead lap, courtesy of a wave around the pace car. But he will be at the very back of the GT4 group now, instead of 5th where he was.
And on top of that, you're burning more fuel because you have to speed about the circuit to give yourself an opportunity to say, well, here I am and here I'm going. I'm back on par with the group. So not only have you pitted early, but you're burning more fuel by doing that and pitting early. So you put yourself at an even bigger disadvantage by making that pit stop in the way that they did. It's going to be very much a telling tale how they go and take this next stint. I wouldn't be surprised if they're down a lap on fuel compared to all of their competitors.
So, Reese, your thoughts on the first 15 laps? Mine are a lot cleaner than I expected.
Yeah, I think so too. Everyone was taking good care around the traffic, and the only incidents that we really saw were from cars losing it by themselves. So I'm quite impressed with how things have gone so far as we see GT4s going by the GT3 traffic. I believe they're being waved around the pace car, and the field incredibly slow here coming down Conrod Straight, a huge concertina. We'll be able to get more green flag runs here. Hopefully it's as clean as the opening stint.
I tend to think that maybe drivers will be a bit more aggressive here, then they've got those start of race jitters out of their system. But hopefully they look at that clock and still see 11.5 hours to go. Worth noting as well, I did note we took the checkered flag in the end, the green flag in the end, with 12 hours 2 minutes on the clock. And those extra 2 minutes could play a factor in race strategy.
It could. 2 minutes is a long time in a race like this. You wouldn't think about it 2 minutes as being too much. That 2 minutes
it's a lap.
The long and the short of this. Yep, you're absolutely right. I was getting to that point. It's a lap. It's an entire lap around this place. And if you're going to add one extra lap in this race, you know, it's one of those things, you know, in those races that you get in like the middle tier open wheels where they decide, oh, we're going to do a 30-minute race plus 1 lap. It feels like that at the moment. We're going to do a Bathurst 12-hour plus 1 lap.
Well, and the lap that they're on when the timer actually runs out as well. So if they've just started a lap, it's another whole lap. So yeah, it's something to consider, and I do wonder if anyone's going to get caught out by that little bit extra required at the end in that final stint. It will be very interesting. Worth noting as well, that incident that brought out this safety car is under review. It was the Torque Inc. GT3 that ran into the back of Wilkinson's drop bear car. In my opinion, not much that Torque Inc. could have done there, but race control will review it, and we'll see what they decide. This should be our final lap behind Nick Parker in the safety car as well, so we'll go green at the end of this lap as race control just getting a little bit annoyed at the drivers not keeping a steady pace. Some concertinas happening up and down the field. GT4s are all lined up pretty much, and just confirming that we will go green this lap. Hearing that call from Mike Korolev in race control now. Michael Schreier was stuck in pit lane for a second there. He's back out.
I'm seeing as well the HJR Jinx Shifters team, number 209, Thomas Hins in the car at the moment. They've been stopped for quite a while. Actually looks like that pit stop's been completed for them. Not too sure why they've spent so much time in the lane there. Probably getting some repairs done.
I'd say repairs without using the fast repair, which I think is a very wise strategy. You get demoted to the back of the field, absolutely, but at exactly the same time, you're still in this race. You can still gain those positions back. It's a long way between now and the end. And if something does go wrong further, you've still got the fast repair.
I've just seen why they had to pit for that damage. You guys mentioned race control were getting a bit annoyed at the lack of consistent pace. Well, the 209 was right in the middle of one of those concertinas down Conrod Straight. Not only did Thomas Hins run into the back of Aaron Major in the 115, he also got rear-ended by Wayne Burke in the number 89. So that's definitely not optimal for HJR.
Yeah, no good. Explains why Korolev getting a bit annoyed over the radio. So we're going to restart here, and John Piesnik will be second behind Josh Anderson. Remember, he made an error at turn 1 on the initial start and lost touch with the top 2. I wonder if Piesnik can drag that R1 Sim Sports Ferrari a little closer to Anderson for a little longer off this restart here. And then keep an eye out for Altus Esports restarting 14th now, and see how they go, trying to get themselves back through the pack. One of only a few GT3 cars that elected to pit under this initial safety car period. So restart number 1 of the 2022 Logitech G Bathurst 12-hour. And Josh Anderson has control. Just backing them up for now, waiting and waiting. Trying to get the right moment to get the jump over Piesnik. He'll probably go at the apex of Murray's Corner here. Wait for it. Wait for it. And there he goes. Right on the apex. Back green at Bathurst. Nice jump from your leaders. Burton already having a look at Jack Boyd. Boyd goes late on the brakes to fend him off there. And I'm seeing the first signs of a little bit of light in the distance. But it is still very much dark at Mount Panorama. Oh, spinner in the background. Off into the gravel and into the fence. Who was that, Sperry?
Well, that was not ideal. It was one of the BMWs there, and you can see it was going to be the team of Watkins, McLaughlin and Major. So some major troubles then for the Australia-wide racing team, who got themselves in trouble when it came to their run on under caution, and now on the restart, they get caught out by cold tyres into Hell's Corner.
You won't see it while we're still under the darkness of early morning, but pretty good livery on that Australia-wide racing purple car. Hopefully it's not too damaged and they can keep going. Here's the action as Andrew Dyson had a very quick look at Jake Burton and almost considered a move at Skyline. That would have been very risky very early on, but Burton just a little bit on the back foot right now after trying to make a move at turn 1. He's not stuck to the back of Jack Boyd across the top of the mountain. And Andrew Dyson will be fancying a move because behind him is Coper, Preston, Vaughan, Reston, and pretty much the entire GT3 field as here he goes. And that straight line deficit for Burton, very substantial compared to Dyson. And Oscar Coper might even get a look in here at the chase. Just a little bit too far back. But late on the brakes, he goes for it. Pulls the hammer. Sends it. Very nice.
Awesome move. That was very well executed. Great dive bomb, but it looks like Jake Burton's going to bring that Vanderval car into the pits. Not sure what's going on there. Maybe there's some extra issues happening in that number 82 car. It's going to be a green flag pit stop for them. This will cause them a huge time loss.
Yeah, that car didn't look particularly flash up down the straight, so we'll keep an eye on that. Apparently Burton hit the fence at the top of the mountain, that's why. So that explains that pit stop. And also the time he lost to Jack Boyd in front. So good restart for Josh Anderson in car 36, hasn't been dislodged from position 1 all weekend as of yet, leading John Peasnick and Jack Boyd, the top 3 in GT3 for R1 Sim Sports and Synergy Sim Racing, Smith & Sons.
It's been a well-executed start for the 36. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, Reese, we should check in on the GT4s further down the order. It's still Kimichev leading from Van Gisbergen. Remember, Matty Jones was the leader, but he's quickly fallen back to third.
Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get a replay of the incident for the number 82, but here we go, up into the cutting. Goodness me. Already making his way back through this field here is Jake Burton. Brilliant stuff, and he has to be quite aggressive there over that section. It's one of the few places across the top of the mountain where you can go side by side, and looks like it might be a move here in GT3 as well. One of the BMWs making a pass here. That is Jared Filsell, still recovering from that lap 1, turn 1 incident. You'd say probably things have been equaled out from the incident that Filsell and Burton had at the start of the race, that both cars have now suffered an issue of some kind, but that Falcon Racing BMW wasting no time making its way up through the field.
Yeah, that safety car early on would have been a big break for that Falcon Racing BMW, and it's allowed Filsell to close back into the GT3 field and really start to go to work now on his competitors. Currently 17th. It's a bit of bump drafting down Mountain Straight towards Griffin's Bend. That's Matthew Cardelone for HBC, pushing along Kobe Jones and the 143 Synergy Sim Racing entry.
Yeah, they need to be doing that though, wouldn't you say? I mean, we're not even through the first hour of racing. You don't want to be pushing people around and getting a little bit rowdy like that. You know, you've got a duty as a driver to take care of everyone else in the field. If you're in the last hour and you're trying to go for a place and you think you can work together to gain another position, that's fair game. But when you're here with about 11 hours, 21 minutes on the clock, you're looking at this race thinking, well, okay, where are we? We're just after a restart, and you're going to start chancing your arm by pushing forward on another driver. You're just asking to have an accident by turning the guy on your nose.
I don't think the bump drafting switch of an issue unless you're in a Ferrari, and then you tend to lift up the back end of the car in front unless no spins happen. It's worth noting that Kobe had just made a move on Matthew Cardelone before we picked up that shot, and James Scott is just off behind them. I think we're looking at him now from the back of Matthew Cardalone's BMW. Scott's moved himself up 5 spots in the order.
It's been some solid driving so far, and you can see here from the HBC racing car, as you look behind, this is always going to be a very important phase of the race when first light just starts to creep over the horizon and you're just thinking about, okay, what do we need to do? We need to look at a lot of things here in this race in terms of how you deal with the track. You've, of course, got to look at the tyres, you've got to look at the track temperatures, you've got to look at all of these factors. And one thing we haven't really talked about is that it's incredibly windy out here today. It's 22 degrees, 22 kilometers an hour, I should say, of wind that's coming in from the east. What does that mean? Well, it means that cars are getting buffeted about and you're getting those crosswinds as you're going through the mountain section. So it's going to be very difficult, and your braking markers all change when the wind's starting to bluster.
Altus Esports have made the move on HBC there. Matthew Cartalone now has his hands full with Sam Sutton in the TriStar Racing 111 BMW.
This is a very interesting group from about 7th on back. Bradley Vaughan just kissed the wall for Pursuit Sim Racing, ahead of Liam Reston, Luke Turner, Kobe Jones. Then comes James Scott, Matthew Cartalone, Sam Sutton, Stuart Vaughan. Phil Sellers in there working his way up the order as well. Ross Rizzo, Robert Gibbs, Kurt Stenberg. So that goes back to 18th place, and they're all very close together, and there's some cars in there that are working their way forward, trying to navigate traffic, and All it takes is one of them to get it wrong. Just saying. As sport bump drafting, this time it's Phil Cell into the back of Ford. Two Beamers working together up Conrod Straight. A few cars in pit lane there, as you saw for a moment. Now pulling to the inside for the chase. Oh, hang on, lads. Phil Cell uses the curb on the inside. And Stuart Ford holds on.
Got every right to defend it here, and that's only going to enrage someone like Jared Philsell. You can see they've got eyes in the back of their head with the camera there, which is positioned in the rear bumper, that you get a good look at who's behind. But really what you're seeing here is a driver deciding that they want to have a fight with an incredibly quick driver. They're allowed to do it. Would I say it's a wise strategy to fight with someone who you know is quicker? I don't think so, but, you know, it's your 12 hours. You go out there and do it the way that you need to. Here comes the move again, moving to that inside. The 69 machine gets a very good run, and I don't think we're going to see too much argument there. That BMW just rocketed on through.
Just in front, Sam Sutton copped a whack from Matthew Cardelone on the entry to Griffin's Bend. He just made the move on the HBC Racing driver and tried to cover him off into Griffin's and copped a whack for his trouble. So we saw that fight happening out the windshield of Phil Cell's Falcon Racing machine. And the three of them are going to be together in just a moment. Good escape for Sutton, good car control in that TriStar Racing machine to hang on to that slide. He's up one spot from where he started.
They will be carrying ever so slight damage to the rear bumper from that, though. I don't think that's going to affect the handling of the car too much, so they've probably just gotten away with it there. But that's the issue that you face when you're trying to pass cars into Griffin's Bend Turn 2 here at Mount Panorama. You have to be on the inside approaching the corner if you want to make the move, because of the crown in the road. There's a bit more camber on the inside line, and it seemed to me Sam Sutton was trying to widen the entry to the corner a little once he'd gotten by Cartellone, and unfortunately they came together in the braking zone. Phil Cell now will negotiate that HBC Racing car. Will be ahead at the turn-in point of the chase, so I wouldn't expect Cartellone to fight this. Doesn't look like he will.
So Phil Cell making quick work. Looking ahead, Scott now looking at the back of 5 cars in front. All of them BMWs. 4 cars, sorry, I can't count. Simple math, it's a trouble spot for me. So 4 BMWs, line astern ahead of the Ferrari for Altus Esports. And this is to get himself inside the top 10 once again after his early pit stop. While he might be 11th at the moment, he could very well be our net leader in a few laps once we see Anderson making his pit stop and everyone else therefore after him or before him, depending how his fuel conservation's going.
Certainly could do, and that's the key, really. You got to be net leader at whatever point you need to be getting on through. But you can see the gap then to R1 is about moving towards 5 seconds here. The Vendaval team in the 36 are absolutely motoring, and this is a very strong team that Vendaval have put together. You know, you got Joshua Anderson, you got Dylan Bursch, of course you've got Lopez there as well, who is for a time probably the GT3 driver to beat. All the way back in about 2017, 2018, he was probably the GT3 driver that put the fear of God into most drivers. So you'd probably say with this field, it's a very, very strong one. That is probably the strongest team. And the worst bit about this team is that it gets stronger as time goes on, which is the pretty much opposite of what everyone else is doing, just by the fact that they can put Lopez in the car as and when they want to, when he's starting to reach, you know, the evening and you would say the more natural times you go out there and you race.
Race?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes,
I thought that's
sorry.
the contrary. I was like, did you hear me? We just saw no further action as well from the race control stewards over that incident between...
Would that be the drop bear 268? Yeah, that makes sense to me. Looked like a racing incident from our perspective.
Just one of those hard luck deals. Play on, say the stewards. Really starting to see some light come into the sky now, just overhead. And in a moment, we're going to have another talking point, and that's the sun when he comes through Skyline.
Yes.
Yeah.
In real life, that's certainly an issue for drivers. Probably not too much in the sim unless you're using VR.
Or HDR. I don't know, man. That sun has been blinding sometimes. It's really depends on exactly where it comes up. Sometimes it just gets right in your eye line.
I mean, sometimes you just have to hope and pray. It's a tough enough corner as it is when you go down commitment, fastest, most loaded section of the track, and you've got to hit the brakes, turn and brake at the same time, and then you've got the sun in your eyes, which is telling you, no, you can't really turn here, you can't really brake, you can't see. So now you're guessing it's pretty much going down a whitewater rapid, so to speak, without your paddle. So hopefully, hope your inflatable boat doesn't get a puncture and you're going to be okay. If not, we might be seeing a caution.
Yeah, forget up the creek without a paddle. How about upper whitewater rapids without a paddle?
Yeah, that's certainly dangerous, isn't it?
Just seeing James Scott be a bit cautious here. He's not pushing on with trying to get by these 4 cars in front. Kobe Jones is going for a move, though. Himself, he's gone very deep on Luke Turner for Pulse Echuca Toyota. He's got it pulled up. It looked like he was going to shoot well wide for a moment there, but good job on the brakes, and that little check-up for Echuca Toyota does allow Scott to finally check one of them off his list, and into the top 10 go Altus Esports once again.
Good stuff there from James Scott, working his way up. And with this field bunched up as it is, after that safety car, plenty more opportunities for that team to make those moves. They're in the 203s, mid-203s for Altus, and it seems that the cars in front, they are going a bit faster at this stage, but James Scott, he does have draft from the cars up ahead. That battle with Kobe Jones, Liam Reston and Bradley Vaughan all fighting for P7 at the moment. It's definitely going to help the Altus crew, especially if they want to do a bit of fuel saving here.
There is the leader in GT4, Vlad Kimichev, getting out of the way of Aaron Major. That was the Australia-wide racing purple car we saw into the fence on the restart. Shane Van Gisbergen is back there in second for Falcon Racing. He's about 1.2 seconds off. And remember, both of these cars pitted under safety car, so they're on the same strategy. There's a bit of the grass for SVG. That's cost him a bit of time. Even SVG struggling out there at times, pushing the limits, trying to extract everything from that McLaren. And the battle for third in GT4. Trans Tasman against Evolution Racing Team. How many times have we seen this? It's Rainer Costello and Richard Hampstead, the 2 champions of each team at the moment.
They're doing a good job here, just keeping each other honest, but they also have to be alert to how much time they've dropped in comparison to those around. There is Ben Christensen in the Jinx Shifters 51, looking to try and get some progress moving forward. Now, I want to go back to the battle there in GT4, because the key is there are 5 seconds adrift of the Falcon and RHE cars, and I would say that the Falcon 50 has done a lot of work as Noom there goes by one of the cars. Didn't quite see who it was. We were looking at the shark fin. It was Anderson making his way through. But one of the keys I think that we're going to be looking at, I think is a really important one, is that if they've lost 5 seconds, how are they going to deal with the 50 and the 888 when they just start sitting on each other and start playing those games of, well, I'm not going to go through, I'm just going to sit and wait. Is that the time where they're going to start closing in? And how aggressive do you want to be gaining a place?
Not very at this point, I'd say.
Yeah, still very early stages, so we'll have to wait and see how these drivers end up negotiating it, but we'll see what Richard Hampstead can do. Speaking of
negotiating, Josh Anderson's caught the GT4 back.
He has indeed, and in a very difficult spot, coming down through the S's into the dipper.
This is great news for John Peasnick. He's
That
going to
it
pick up
is.
some time. At the start of this lap, he was 5.8 seconds away, although Peasnick's held up himself now in behind Ben Christensen. both of these GT3 cars on dispatch of their respective bottlenecks. Down or up Conrod Straight.
Looks like Peasnick might encounter these cars coming into the final couple of turns at the rate he's catching them. Anderson has already cleared that 3-car pack. Now he has to worry about Benjamin Faulkner coming up to the final couple of turns. Actually, looks to me like Peasnick isn't going to be that disadvantaged here. He should come up on the Race on Oz BMW coming into Murray's Corner. And looks like, yeah, he's a bit too far back to make the move. However, he's got 2 more straights, the front straight and mountain straight, to make his moves.
How about this battle, Sperry? Altus and Falcon Racing. 2 hot favourites for this one. It's...
Absolutely, you would expect them to be down the order in around about 10th position. The 43 doing a good job. We haven't really talked much about the balance of performance of these machines. I'd say the Ferrari is the one that is probably the most difficult to drive out there of the 3. And if you're going to absolutely get it hooked up, you're going to be flying. That BMW is probably the safest option out there in terms of both pace and also when it comes to stability. And that's why you see the majority of the field is going to be that prototype BMW that BMW actually used here in the iRacing service to effectively test run their car before they actually released it out on track. So I think they've got a really good opportunity here to look at what they're doing, see what they're available with. But I'd say if you're in the BMW, you're going to be pretty solid and just hoping that you're not going to make a mistake. It's probably the toughest car to put in a wall.
Oh no, oh dear, GT4 on the wall. Traffic was trying to negotiate across the top of the mountain, and it looks like Ben Christensen is crabbing now in the Jinx Shifters 51. The suspension of that car destroyed thanks to that tap from the GT3s trying to make their way through. That was Bradley Vaughan who was attempting to make the pass there.
It's going to be tough for him to stay out of the way of all these cars coming through now, with how much he's struggling and where he is. Oh, Mitch Campbell does a good job there to not drill him. Dylan O'Shea as well checks up. Jason Cooper's going to go by now. Christensen's doing a really good job here. We're going to replay that if we can in a moment, as we go back to this mess of cars. Well, that's a lot of cars in one shot.
Oh boy. And passes being made. That's a gaggle indeed. That's the other Jinx Shifters BMW getting absolutely steamrolled by the GT3 pack as they work their way through. Goodness me, this is getting frenetic, and this could definitely advantage or disadvantage people as, oh dear, that's another Jinx Shifters BMW off the circuit. Big shame to see.
That was Benjamin Faulkner. That was Racing Oz, actually.
Oh yes, my apologies.
Not a good lap to be a GT4, and in both instances, they were hit.
Yeah, it's getting clumsy.
By the same car.
Yeah, Bradley Vaughan might be having a double slap coming his way in terms of penalties.
Yeah, look, this is what you can't do. You can't just drive as if the GT4 car isn't there when you go in and try and make a corner. You can try and be cheeky, but you've not got any overlap. They're just going to take the natural racing line. You cannot afford to just drive through these GT4 fields. Of course, it'll make it easier for your life later on if they're all getting damaged and they're all in trouble. But right now, that's going to be 2 penalties, pretty much 1 and 2. The moment that you get yourself 2 penalties and you get yourself in a world of hurt, then your race is pretty much going from bad to worse to downright diabolical.
He might get away with the first one, but the second one is a slam dunk for me.
Agreed.
We'll see how race control view it. Either way, I think we can pretty much guarantee 1 penalty coming his way. As we go back to this, Lee Ellis, Liam Reston. Lee Ellis is in a GT4 car at the head of this gaggle of GT3s, just behind the 2 cars we're watching. We go back there, we'll see Kobe Jones trying to make a move on Liam Reston. Wheel to wheel up Mountain Straight, Conrod Straight rather. There you go. Kobe Jones on the inside, going to swoop by Reston, and Jared Filsell will be looking for a move as well. James Scott in there, Luke Turner, Sam Sutton. Lee Ellis has now fallen to the back of this group in his GT4. So he's survived that round of fighting with the GT3s. Just 11 hours and 4 minutes to go.
Well, they can get through that pretty nicely, but the question's not getting through it once, it's the question of getting through it multiple times. And you're going to see this off of a lot of this race. You're going to see a pack of 4, a pack of 5, a pack of 6. That sort of pack only breaks up once you go through a pit stop cycle. And this is probably one of the places where it is so easy to gain and lose time on a cycle of stopping, because you have a pit entry that in and of itself you must attack to get into. You've got a very late commitment cone to stop and hit the brakes. And with all of that said, you then have to put fuel in the car. You've got tyres that you may be looking at. Driver swap's going to take some time as well away from everybody else. And this just becomes a case of there are so many variables when it comes to the racing that makes life really difficult. I mean, look at this. Look at how congested it is. They go through Reed Park. Everybody is pretty much clamoring over the back like it's a Beatles concert, and they have got the final ticket. They want to get in, they want to get that opportunity to move forward, and in the end, love me do, I hope I get through without any issues at all.
And Christensen's gone out of the fire and into the furnace. He's got his spare car and he's back in the action. He's got Phil Cell all over him now, trying to get out of the way of him. That was a bit awkward. Phil Cell gets by, James Scott does not. That's good news for Phil Cell and Falcon Racing.
It is indeed. They've been very well placed negotiating that GT4 traffic. An incident happened in the chase while we were going through all of that. Dylan O'Shea in the Simrigs.com DPR number 73 Ferrari went for a spin, but he's managed to get going without any damage.
And, would you believe it, Bradley Vaughan's escaped both penalties.
Wow.
Wow. Is Owen Wilson in this commentary box now? Wow.
We're all Owen Wilson on this day, as looks like Phil Cell. That's going to be interesting coming up to this pack of GT4s. That's the battle for third place between Evolution Racing Team and Trans-Tasman Racing. James Scott's going to have to stay behind them here through Hell Corner, but down Mountain Straight he will very easily get them. Oh dear. That's the 9.5 Sim Sports BMW going for a bit of lawn mowing at the chase.
They've
Can't
not
see
had a
if
good
there's
start.
too much damage.
They've not had a good start, have they, Reese? They were in the fence, the cutting. Are they 3 wide? They might have been for a moment there. Double file. There's a few GT4s in here. Stuart Ford sneaks up the inside of Griffins. Kurt Stenberg takes that open door invitation. Matty Jones just made the move on Ben Christensen. Taipan versus Jing Shifters for a position in the GT4 field.
That incident for Sean McNamara in the 9.5 was a bit of a close call. Looked like he actually got a tank slapper in the braking zone of the chase and almost cleaned up Jason Cooper in the 5-star motorsport car. But fortunately, they've escaped with no damage. And I don't know how much longer that's going to last with this battle pack, Ryan. It's incredibly tight at the moment.
Sorry, I just watched Matthew Cardelone try to pick up Richard Hampstead around the outside of the Skyline, and it didn't work. Luckily, they didn't crash, but whew, it was tight. We're seeing some really, really tight racing in the last few minutes. These GT4s just getting rounded up, and a lot of big groups of GT3 cars just stuck together like glue.
I'd have to look at Burke here in the 89. It's absolutely chocker as they go too wide into the chase. Oh my goodness me. And they've got traffic to deal with as they get to the apex, because that's going to be Reina Costello's ERT machine that gets there. And now you're trying to thread through, and there's what, 3, 4, 5? And I tell you what, this is the last place you'd want to be if you're out there driving. I don't want to be in this. And all of a sudden the Trans-Tasman car finds itself trying to turn 5 different directions, and uh-oh, we're 3 wide on the front stretch. This is insane.
Stuart Vaughan now with an opportunity to pass Ross Rizzo. And Rizzo with some damage to the back of his Trans-Tasman Beamer. Kurt Stenberg in the Mercedes. I think still the highest placed Mercedes in this one. He's moved up a few spots since the start. Can't find the legs to go by on Mountain Straight. Up the road I see a bit more side by side. That's Robert Gibbs ahead of Matthew Cardellone. That's Dropbed Motorsport in Cozy, working up into 14th place.
made the move up the inside coming into Griffin's Bend, and Cartalone, he has a bit of rear wing damage to boot, as you can see. Now he's under pressure from Burke in the number 89. Let's see what... Oh dear, it looks like a bit of GT4 traffic. That is Shane Van Gisbergen in the Falcon Racing number 50. Move made there for Burke on Cartalone, but you have to be careful here coming up to Skyline. They don't have enough pace to get past Van Gisbergen on that very short straight line section. So now it's a freight train coming down the mountain.
This is very smart positioning from Van Gisbergen. He drove that inside line around the top of the mountain so that they couldn't sneak up the inside of him and risk contact. They'll sneak up there at Forest Elbow, but Van Gisbergen just using his experience to ensure that the risks are mitigated and forcing those GT3s to be patient. Finally, the cork is unleashed and they all go flying by. Could be a move here for Wayne Burke. This could prove to be a very fruitful lap for Coyote 9 out of the Synergy Sim Racing Smith & Son stable.
Not quite close enough to get it done on Robert Gibbs, but he'll certainly hammer away at him and potentially make the move at Griffin's Bend.
Love this. 10 hours, 57 minutes, 45 seconds go in this race. And it's racing a bit like a sprint. It always does, doesn't it? It tends to go that way, Reese.
Yeah.
You end up with a 12-hour sprint race.
Well, that's how endurance racing has evolved over the course of the last 30 years. It used to be all about endurance and taking care of the car, making sure you can nurse it to the end. Well, modern racing technology is now to the point that these cars can go full tilt for up to 24 hours. So it's awesome to see that endurance racing has gotten so sprint-like. Definitely gives another dimension to the racing.
The real question now is less so on the cars going the distance, but the drivers. It's the driver fatigue that really starts to wear, you find, as you get towards the end of these races.
Yeah, absolutely. The human element is the foremost one, especially in sim racing. You know, everyone driving the same software, using different equipment obviously, but it all comes down to the mental game. And it seems Robbie Gibbs is winning the mental game right now because he's actually gapping Wayne Burke now that they've gotten past that GT4 traffic. Meanwhile, Simrigs and Synergy Sim Racing, this is the battle for third in GT3, and that DPR Ferrari looking fast.
It's Ben Christensen. If we pick him up, if he's still on track, he's just coming to pit lane now. Limped to the pit lane with damage again. And remember, they've already taken their spare car. This time, he was victim to not Bradley Vaughan, but another GT3. I believe it was Jesse Butler that got into Ben Christensen back at the cutting. It was Butler for Mark 1 Esports 333. Just snuck up the inside. Christensen tried to stop him, and contact has put him into the fence. There's a car out there requesting a tow.
The 286 between the cutting and Griffins. Between Griffins and the cutting, rather. They are stopped on the circuit.
Yeah, that'll be a safety car. That's a Taipan Esports machine that, for a moment, led the GT4 field. Matty Jones been at the wheel since the start of this race, and everyone is diving into pit lane expecting a safety car. Josh Anderson has been in, and he's gone out.
Well, the Taipan car is well placed, actually. They might be able to allow him to tow while staying green. He's actually pulled up just by an access road. Yep, they've done that. So a lot of drivers jumping into the pits thinking there's going to be a safety car. That hasn't ended up going.
Well, maybe they were just in the pit window. Either way, a lot to unpack. The field going through another shuffle. We'll go to a quick break here on Sim Speed TV. Stick around. Still got a couple more hours of coverage coming your way.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in endorsed series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
What does it take to win? Is it something you're born with? Is it the grind? Every day. Gear up. Do battle. For the 10,000th time. Or is it pushing to your absolute limits? To be faster. Always faster. Insanely precise. Totally free and at one with the game. Or maybe it's just getting to that place where nothing else matters. Nothing in the way of winning.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's got really outside of both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to him. Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
This is very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?
Welcome back to our coverage of the Logitech G OSR Bathurst 12 Hour for 2022, the second running of this event. And boy, are we glad we're doing this, because we are seeing some fantastic racing out there. The sky is starting to lighten up, the drivers' heads are starting to clear up, and we're seeing some aggression. There is the orange sunrise over Mount Panorama and the Blue Mountains over in New South Wales, about 3 hours west of Sydney. Not a bad drive between those two cities, if I do say so myself. There is our new race leader. It is James Scott for Altus Esports, also sponsored by Logitech G, I should mention. And they were one of only a few GT3 cars to pit under our sole safety car period so far. It put them back in the pack, and as a result, with the first pit cycle now complete, they are the leaders of the race. The car that was setting the pace and is now not in first place for the first time this weekend, Josh Anderson and Vendaval Sim Racing White, they're back there in P9, and Anderson yet to relinquish control of that car to anyone but himself this weekend as well. We have not yet seen his teammates in that Porsche. Anderson, of course, driving with Juan Lopez and Dylan Burst, so double stinting at the start of this one is Mr. Anderson. Reese, the light is up, sun is out, the field's been shuffled again, ready for round 2?
Ready for round 2 indeed. This is going to be quite the interesting race from here on out. The point you made just before we went to the break, drivers probably in the pit window. I think that's definitely the case. But Altus Esports pitting under the safety car, they're going to be able to go longer here than everyone else.
Yeah, we don't know who's on the right strategy. Is it Altus Esports? Is it Vendaval and the rest of the field? Who knows? We're not going to know until the end of the race, and until then it's going to be a bit of a swapping back and forth. Unless we get a safety car somewhere that equalises them, they've both been at the same time. Here's the battle for 11th place though. On track, it's Crisscross Racing. Jake Edwards at the wheel. Also double stinting. Dylan O'Shea, double stinting as well, for simrigs.com. And Sean McNamara. Now, he's double stinting, but he's had a very troublesome start to this race. We saw him in the fence at one point, and we saw him through the chase at one point, in the gravel. He's still holding on to a top 15 spot.
It's been a good run from Simrigs DPR, all things considered. They'll be hoping to minimise those issues as the race goes on.
Yeah.
But right in the middle of a BMW sandwich, the Ferrari being the Mortadella, I suppose, in this case. Looks like they're starting to come up on some GT4 traffic. Lockhart Brownlee in the Taipan Esports 286. Remember, they were the car that was stopped by the side of the track just before we went to the break. They are back out on the circuit now, down in 50th overall and 3 laps down on the GT3 leaders.
10th in the GT4 class.
Yes.
2 laps down on their GT4 leaders.
There's the 69, meanwhile, making up another position there, just going past the Mercedes.
And the GT4 leader as well.
Yes, Vlad Kinichev still holding on there in the R8G guest entry, the 888. And their decision to pit later under the first safety car is part of what brought them into this position in the first place. Unfortunately, they are stymieing the run of 4 GT3s at the moment. Curtis Porter and Stone Cold. Then we've got Copa, Reston and Vaughan all behind them too. This is going to be interesting coming into Skyline.
Look out for Bradley Vaughan. He's bulldozed a couple GT4s so far.
They can't get it done.
Yeah, this is Kimichev doing exactly what SVG did, driving the inside line that makes sure the GT3s can't go by, and Porter actually lost some time through the dipper. Apparently that GT4 is a bit more manoeuvrable through those tight quarters. They'll round him up on this straight though, up Conrod. It's got some legs, that GT4.
Absolutely has.
Reston and Bradley Vaughan will sneak by just in time. I love multi-class racing. It's so much fun.
Oh yeah. Fantastic. It looks like Vaughan might be getting a slight run on Liam Reston there, as that's a move behind. That's Kobe Jones, I think, defending from Sam Sutton in the 111. This battle here in GT3 still working out, not quite in the favour of Bradley Vaughan, unable to get by Liam Reston despite a much better exit from the chase. He's going to have to wait a bit. And they haven't got much GT4 traffic to think about until Lockhart Brownlee, who's just negotiating Griffin's Bend at the moment. They might end up coming up to him just when they get to Conrod, maybe a little earlier.
Oh, that's late from Copa.
Oh, goodness
He tried
me.
to cover, did Curtis Porter. He couldn't do so in the end. And that's going to cost him a couple spots. Reston's going to go by. Bradley Vaughan's looking at the outside of the cutting, and Porter says, no thank you. I don't want part of this. Backs out of it. So he goes to the back of this train in the Mercedes. And I think for Stone Cold Racing, it's probably the best they could have hoped for after getting caught in that position.
Yeah, once you're forced to the outside in Griffin's Bend, you lose so much momentum that if there's a trio of cars behind you, all three are likely to get by before the cutting. Again, it's the crown in the road at Griffin's Bend. This track is a public road for most of the year, and so it is built to those standards. There is a bit of a crown in the tarmac, especially down Conrod Straight as well. You'll notice that drivers will often choose a side of that straight to negotiate very early.
Yeah. Just up the road, you can see Jared Filsell moving on by David Riddell from Twitchy Foot Racing. Filsell's elected to remain in his car. Remember, 65 laps is the most you can do in one stint in the GT3s, and we're just about to begin lap 40.
And Bradley Vaughan is really hammering the back of his fellow BMW, isn't he? Trying to dial up the aggression as much as possible. I think they got a bit lucky, did Pursuit Sim Racing, to escape penalties for that GT4 contact, but now their main focus is to try and move up the field even more. Remember, they're battling for 23rd position right now, and it seems Vaughan, he might have to back off a little bit and let those tyres cool down slightly, because he's overdriving that thing at the moment, getting a bit of oversteer on. There is Lockhart Brownlee in the Taipan GT4 BMW, and it doesn't look like this is going to work out well here for Bradley Vaughan, having to back off a little in Griffin's Bend, but should make his way past through the cutting.
There's a really cool battle developing for P5 overall, well, in the GT3s. Ashley Lear at the head of the train at the moment for Torque Inc. He's the slowest of the bunch. Behind him, Lachlan Capel for Velocity SimLab is closing in. So is Daniel Hall for LL Racing. They've rocketed up the order. I know they started 40th or 39th. LL Racing, now 6th. Joshua Anderson and Jake Burton, Vendaval United. Finally, together on track, there's two Vendaval cars at the back of this train, and the fastest of them all. So, could see 5 cars scrapping it out for P5 here, Reese.
Potentially, and it seems that Vendaval pair, they are rounding up Daniel Hall coming out of the chase. You see Anderson having a tiny look to the inside, but he's not going to be able to make the move cleanly unless Daniel Hall makes a mistake, which he does, and goes into the gravel out of Murray's Corner. And that LL Racing BMW will now have a little bit of front right damage, it seems.
That's a shame. They climbed all the way from the back of the grid, and now a little bit of damage. It's not too bad. This is a Logitech entry as well.
Yeah, this Velocity Sim Labs entry doing very well and actually catching up to Ashley Lear at a rate of knots, it seems.
Yeah, Ashley Lear was a 2:03.8 last lap, a 2:03.4 for Lachlan Capel. So, better part of half a second quicker. And you'll want to get by pretty quickly here because you'll know those two Vendaval cars are coming up at a rate of knots. 2:03.2 they both did last lap, even with that traffic in front of Daniel Hall. How's the sun as they head through McPhillamy? A bit of cloud cover is doing them some favours, I think.
Seems that way. Sun
Nice
behind
helmet.
the clouds, and oh god, it always gets me when cars go through the dipper at speeds like that. The way the track just bottoms out at the apex of the dipper, it must do a number on the spine in real life.
Have you been to the Dipper in real life?
I have. I've been to the Bathurst 12 Hour in real life, I think, 3 or 4 times, and I have walked the track. And, you know, there is that old commentary cliche when they go to Bathurst, isn't that right? TV and games don't do the track justice. And I would say that is definitely not without real foundation. The Dipper is incredibly difficult to negotiate on foot. I can't imagine what it's like in a race car.
Yeah, I've not made it that far up the mountain yet. I've been to Bathurst twice, but I haven't got out of the paddock. Can't escape work. I've got to get there though. And maybe after I get fitter, because I do hear it's quite the task walking that track.
Oh yeah.
As we head on board with Trans-Tasman Racing. It's still the David and Goliath battle of Evolution and Trans-Tasman. We're second and third now in GT4 class. Heading down the mountain. Richard Hampstead is at the wheel. Reina Costello is also at the wheel. Pretty much everyone is double stinting their opening driver here. Do you think double stints for every driver through to the end? Is that a potential strategy, Reese? Or
I think so. I mean, what you got to consider is with the driver change rules. One thing that the drivers will have to take into account is the time it takes to swap drivers. So if you have to make a very short pit stop under safety car, if you have to do a splash and dash at the end, and you've got a driver that has already reached their maximum allowable laps in a stint, then you're going to have to factor in that 30 seconds flat driver time. That could potentially cost you time.
yeah, and that's the other factor to the extra 2 minutes, is that extra lap may push you over the edge in terms of not just field but driver time. So lots to look out for, and that's why a lot of these teams have a dedicated spotter or manager looking after the strategy for them, so the drivers can just focus on driving and not worry about all that extra stuff.
Driver swap in the Falcon Racing 50, who's fighting for the win in GT4. Nick Foster has taken over from Shane Van Gisbergen and already thrown into the thick of it with a huge line of GT3 cars making their way past him on Conrod Straight.
Third in class in the Bathurst 12 Hour in 2016, Nick Foster. Very experienced racer overseas, does a lot of GT racing and endurance racing. And good friends with Shane Van Gisbergen. Good to see them pairing up here in the sim. I believe they compete together in the Apex Hunters United League. I believe that's the one that SVG actually runs himself.
Yes.
And they team up in that series together as well. So tried and tested combination.
Let's see what Nick Foster can do. He's not going to have too many opportunities to set fast lap times because he's getting passed by GT3s left, right and centre. But he should get a short break very soon. But we focus on this battle further up the field in GT3. 9th place, XCM. Remember, they pitted under the first safety car. Jackson Schaub taking over from Jason Bentz, and the way the field has shuffled out thanks to that second pit cycle has worked out pretty well for the XCM Ferrari. Unfortunately, they are facing a lot of pressure from behind. Dylan O'Shea and the simrigs.com DPR Ferrari still showing that that team has what it takes to finish in the top 10 despite their issues earlier on. And Sean McNamara as well in the 9.5 SimSport machine. They have had their issues too and visits to the gravel trap. It's good to see that they are still in this fight for the top 10.
This is a healthy pack of cars. Jake Edwards just going to slip by at the chase. Oh, Faulkner was so close to grabbing the grass with the left side tyres in his GT4. He's going to edge out Peasnick on the exit of the chase. Now he edges out Andrew Dyson on the other side. Peasnick eventually gets through first. Dyson will follow, but Faulkner just almost slipping off the deep end there in the swimming pool. Peasnick probably a bit further back than he would have wanted to be for R1 SimSports. Strategy hasn't gone amazingly for them, and they've lost some track position compared to the drivers who are racing at the start. Josh Anderson, he's about 7 spots off the road.
Drew Orishchin taking over in the LL Racing machine from Daniel Hall. Seems that pit stop is going okay for those guys, but talking about Peasnick, you mentioned he's a bit further back than he'd want. Well, these Vendaval cars are the machines that the R1 SimSports Ferrari is technically battling. Remember, R1 SimSports starting second and running like that early on.
Yeah, so as I said, about 7 spots behind them on the racetrack. It can be quite a while to make up those 7 spots when you're fighting for position and not just trying to go by GT4 cars. I'm looking at one car. How did Talking get up to 5th? That snuck by me. Ashley Leah doing a very good job.
Talking are no strangers to endurance racing. You often see them competing in the V8 Scops Enduros. They'll make their way past the analytical race on Oz GT4. Luke Mitchinson at the wheel of the 101 there, and trailed by those 2 Vanderwaal cars. Ashley Lear has proven himself quite the solid competitor starting off this race, but let's see if he gets double-teamed by the Vanderwaal cars. Up goes Anderson to the inside of the chase and completes the move nicely. Now, going to have to worry about Jake Burton, and this has brought Lachlan Capel into the fold as well in the Velocity SimLab BMW. He could look for another position here. Pretty fantastic run from the Velocity BMW, I have to say.
Yeah, they're having a good charge up the order, as there's a few GT4s just in the same sort of space on the racetrack at the moment. Into pit lane come 951. McNamara will be hopping out of that car and handing over to one of his teammates as we go to the top of the mountain and find Altus Esports at the top of the totem pole as well, leading this race by a decent margin, 7.2 seconds back to Synergy Sim Racing. James Scott has been the man in charge since the drop of the green. It was Andrew Carl that qualified the car. We've yet to see Cody Doth in action. This is a 29-lap stint at this stage for Altus. They won't be far away from the pit stop, and Scott will have to get out of the car because he's done 44 laps and they won't get a full stint in before reaching the maximum driver stint length.
That's something that Altus Esports are going to have to consider going further on into the race once you start getting into the final 3 hours, which we will be broadcasting on SimSpeed TV later today. Might have to look at changing up the stint lengths a little.
Will you be joining us for that race?
I will not, unfortunately.
Why not?
I was going to be doing the afternoon session, but I've decided to switch to the morning one because my Kiwi mates invited me for a Waitangi Day Hungy at his house.
Oh, not the answer I expected.
Yeah.
It sounds fun though.
Yeah, so that's going to be my Sunday afternoon, but I will be keeping up with the goings-on in this race. It's certainly been a fantastic one so far. Another GT3 pack making their way past BMW here. Fred Vaughan, Flock and Bowl are in the pursuit number 5. We'll be happy to see that they're still pressuring for position here coming into the chase, but this is going to be side by side up ahead of them. Are they going to make the move here on the RSR Esports BMW? Oscar Copa is holding the outside, and bit of oversteer on the exit. That's going to give Vaughan the best possible run here coming into the final corner. Gets squeezed just a little bit and he can't make the move. That is some brilliant driving from Oscar Copa to hold the momentum around the outside of 2 corners.
Man, that was wild. Oscar Copa leaving nothing between him and his competitors. It's probably a bit too much squeezing happening early on in this race, but it makes for great viewing. He should get him here, Bradley Vaughan, although he's on the wrong side of the racetrack, and the outside at Griffin's Bend famously is terrible. So Copa holds on. Liam Reston will be loving this because it's allowing him to build some sort of margin over Bradley Vaughan. Oh, there's the hit. Bradley Vaughan into the back of Copa and into the fence he goes.
That's a shame to see. Looks like Copa has been able to get it going, but that RSR Esports crew certainly going to be very unhappy with pursuit for that. We'll get it on the replay thanks to our friends at Virtual Racing School, and goodness me, yeah, that was a straight up rear ending in the braking zone of the cutting, and they will have suffered a good amount of rear end damage from that.
I reckon Pursuit Sim Racing, you're going to have to go to the discount store and pick up a pack of those apology cards after this race, the rate they're going.
Well, Altus in the pits, and they are joined by the 89, Luke Rosella, taking over from Wayne Burke in that car, and Cody Dythe manages to jump into the Altus number 43. We've also got, it seems, the Stone Cold Mercedes in the pits, with Warwick Sharp at the wheel of that one, having just taken over from Curtis Porter.
Oh. Something's happened at Forest Elbow. One of the racing old cars, I imagine. It was Isaac Edwards that called out over the radio.
Yep, 102 stopped at the elbow.
Oh, Benjamin Faulkner. He's been in the wars today. And the walls. Come on.
He's got a good amount of space there to make the three-point turn. Only just managed to.
Replay, thank you, Virtual Racing School. It was contact with a GT3 car. Matthew Cartolo and the other party there. Just a little hip check. Whoa!
Oh, that was close. You definitely got to thread the needle on the inside.
Robert Gibbs for Drop That Motorsport and Cozy. Just sneaking by.
That team will be counting their lucky stars, but Faulkner has managed to get back going, and with, I guess, as minimal damage as you can get from an incident like that, continues on. Got more GT3 pitters. Velocity Sim Lab, Paul Bryan has taken over from Lachlan Capel. We've also got David Coleman continuing his stint in the Fishy Motorsport number 8. He just exits the pits there. You'll see it on the screen. Beautiful stuff. David Coleman is going for quite the stint here. And I think at this rate, Fishy Motorsport, they're going to have to shorten this stint because David Coleman is on his 47th lap at the moment.
Yeah.
Won't be able to get to the end of the fuel tank before they have to change drivers.
Wonder if they've thought about that. Wonder if that's part of the strategy. Just looking at the two Vendaval cars. And I reckon Jake Burton's quicker. Because he has been on the bumper of Josh Anderson since the start of this stint. And Anderson's not pulled away at all. I mean, they're totally doing some sort of benefit for Burton, but he's sticking right with him. But interesting to see the teamwork between the two team cars, and Burton not going for the overtake. It'll be working out well for them in the long run. This time they're gaining by not fighting.
Well, we've got our GT4 podium battlers in the lane, the Trans-Tasman McLaren and the Evolution Racing Team Porsche. Brad Ryan jumping into the 117, taking over from Rainer Costello. And in the TTR McLaren, it seems that Lee Ellis is going to be staying in that car. Makes sense. He took it over from Madison down.
Whoa, hang on. What happened at Forest Elbow? I've just seen a replay of 4 cars in the fence.
Okay, there's been a huge incident there that we've unfortunately missed.
Mitch Campbell was one of them for 9.5 SimSport. The 69 at Jared Philsell snuck by, but also involved were Aaron Gilbert, Daniel Flanagan, and Andrew Dyson. So 2 Jinx Shifters cars. There was a piece of contact for Warwick Sharp as well in the Mercedes for Stone Cold Racing.
Goodness. Okay, well, we'll try and figure out.
Jack Boyd, while he had no contact, had to come to a stop and wait for the tracks to clear.
Oh yeah, I'm just seeing it myself. This is pretty huge. Lee Ellis in the TTR McLaren came up on that, and he would have lost some time to ERT as a result. Goodness me, yeah, there's cars strewn across the racetrack. Let's try and dissect this.
How have they got away without blocking the track here? Because at one point, there was cars either side of the track.
Yeah, well, we'll see it happen pretty soon. It started with Josh Anderson trying to go up the inside of Daniel Flanagan at Forest Elbow and hitting Flanagan into the wall. And then this pack of cars that we're looking at now will come up on that as Flanagan reverses back onto the racing line. And this is really poorly timed. Oh man, that's some team drama, I think, at the Jinx Shifters outfit. And everyone trying to pick their way through. Oh no. It's so difficult to try and determine the best time to go. You know, if you're trying to make those split-second decisions, you do have your F3 black box up. But this is the incident that sparked it all.
It's a penalty. That's an absolute slam dunk.
Yeah.
Not Flanagan, what have you done?
Oh dear. Yeah, that's definitely an unsafe re-entry there. And, oh man. Yeah, that's twice in a row, unfortunately. I don't think Race Control are going to look too kindly on that.
Just a scene of chaos.
Well, we stay green despite all of that. And cars in the pits. Looks like one of the Vendaval entries in as well. The number 82, Nick Ladicki, is taken over from Jake Burton.
Well, I am absolutely amazed that did not bring out a safety car. All those cars pulled away, got back to the pits and pulled out the spare car, if they had it available. Here is Vendaval alongside...
That's the XCM Ferrari, and coming up on them, the Team JDR Ferrari, with much better run down Conrod Straight, having taken it at racing speed, but doesn't look like they're necessarily fighting for position at this stage.
Bradley Vaughan needs to go buy a lotto ticket. He's escaped penalty again. And Matthew Cardeline has also escaped penalty for his contact with Ben Faulkner a few laps ago. And probably goes without saying that the other incident at Forest Elbow is under investigation.
Well, I think with a slightly unsafe re-entry, I think a penalty is likely, but we have been surprised by a couple of race controls decisions so far. We'll have to wait and see what the result is.
That sun looks to be becoming a bit of a menace now at Skyline as we ride on board with Phil Sells. It's still Phil Sell at the wheel.
Yes.
It is. Who do you reckon hops in next race? Cooper Murray or Brody Kostecki?
Yeah, well, that's it's a good problem to have. Both very strong drivers, but Cooper Murray is the one in the session at the moment, so I would presume that he's going to take over from Phil Sell.
Brody is probably catching up on sleep after... Oof.
Oh man, that is bright. Oh.
After racing some sprint cars in Toowoomba last night.
Yeah, of course, Brody Kostecki, one of many real-life racers in this field with a very busy real-life racing schedule.
Oh, that's a penalty. So the Daniel Flanagan has been given a stop and hold for 1 lap.
Wow. That is big.
Man.
That is huge. So that tells you what race control thinks of a double unsafe re-entry. And that's
admin scar. Oh no.
Oh dear. Well, certainly flicking away any questions of bias with that decision.
Yeah. What did was it Greg Murphy who had to stop and hold 5 minutes?
Yes.
What did he go and do? Did he yeah. Toilet break?
Yeah, I think so. Oh dear.
Great opportunity here for Daniel Flanagan. Go. Shouldn't laugh, I'm sorry, but come on.
Well, I guess it's just really rare that you see penalties of that magnitude applied.
It's not quite Greg Murphy's level. 2 minutes for one lap will be about 2 minutes. Although he's in a GT4 car, so it's closer to 2.5 minutes. He's in the pits now. No one's in the car. They've all run away to have a little
pep talk.
Yeah. Listen, guys, let's not do that again. It's a long way back, though. 10 hours, 20 minutes. They've been in the wars a few times. They're already 14 laps now. But, hey. Try and finish this race, never know what can happen.
Yeah, just getting to the finish is an achievement for many of these teams. That's just the way endurance racing is, you know. You can have everything go your way, or you can suffer problems all the way through, but as long as you stick with it and go to the finish, then that's certainly an achievement in and of itself, especially at a track as difficult and demanding as Bathurst. And these guys in this GT3 battle are certainly finding that. The Pursuit Sim Racing, number 5, making his way past Sean Anton McLaughlin in the Australia-wide racing car. The Pulsachuca Toyota car moves over, and we get a glimpse of that Australia-wide racing livery that you were singing the praises of earlier, Ryan.
Yes, I was. Now the lights are up, we can see it, and I don't know, that colour combination just works nicely. Purple and black. I'm a fan.
Yeah, certainly. Oh dear.
That's a car.
Stone Cold Mercedes. Warwick Sharp. There's another car stopped too, apparently. Oh no! It's the 82! And that's at the top of the mountain. Oh.
More smoke. Was that... Who was that? Or was that just from him turning the car back around? This is big.
Oh dear.
Nick Ledecky at the wheel. The smoke we saw was from him doing the flip spin. So, no other drama there, but what happened?
It was at Reed Park here. You'll see, unfortunately, he clobbers the wall on the left-hand side, just coming up to it now. And bam, ricocheted into the next wall and going for a huge spin. All the other cars avoiding action, and I think very well done by Ledecky to keep the car off the racetrack there, but that is a huge blow for Van der Waal.
Jake Burton did such a fantastic job. Nick Ledecky, in his third lap at the wheel, has got it terribly wrong. And that's a big blow to this entry. This is a replay from on board with XCM.
Good to see that the drivers were right on the brakes coming up to that incident. And certainly a part of the circuit that you don't want to see a car spinning in front of you. The walls are close on either side and there's no room for error at all. Ledecky has brought the number 82 into the pits. Meanwhile, they have heavy damage, and if they still have a fast repair in hand, they might have to take it.
They should do. They've not had any dramas so far. He's only going to be one lap. Oh, that'll be a safety car. He's
stuck in the wall.
He's in the fence. He's in the fence. It's the 426, the Pace Syndicate machine. Miles Bond. And the safety car is deployed. This is a godsend for Van der Waal Sim Racing.
It was contact with the GT4 that started that off, and of course the car trying to extract itself from the barrier. It's coming up on the HBAG Race on Oz GT4 here. You see him just up ahead, but Miles Bond attempting to make his way through at Metal Grate. When you start going uphill again, it's difficult to turn in, and wasn't quite going to hit the apex. Gets into the GT4, who turns in and right into the barrier. And by into, we definitely mean into.
I think that Racing Oz car grabbed the fence at Metal Grate before swinging back into Miles Bond. It's on board. Who was the wheel here?
No, he didn't grab the fence. I've just checked there.
Benjamin Smith.
He managed to avoid the wall, but I think turning in. Yeah, he was going for the apex, but that Pace Syndicate car was alongside him at the time.
Now, I do wonder if this cycles Altus back to the lead, or whether Altus choose to pit. This could put them back on the same strategy. Josh Anderson's dove to pit lane.
No surprise there.
Nick Ledecky is still in the pits. So they're not taking that spare car. Now, he's got to make sure he heads back out there before the leader comes back around.
Yeah, they're already two laps down.
They were 1 lap down. They're now 2 laps down.
That first Van der Waal car, the number 36, overshooting the pit box, that'll cost them a little bit of time here. That could be the difference maker between a few positions. But Dylan Burse, who is racing in S5000 this year, jumps into that car, taking over from Joshua Anderson. Meanwhile, Rhys Gasol jumping into the R1 Sim Sports Ferrari. So John Peacenik's first stint is done of this race. They are taking tyres as well. No surprise to see that.
I'm just a little confused what's happening with car 82. Have they just decided to give up?
No, Nick Ludecki is looks like he's still in the car. I think they're taking those repairs manually just to save their fast repair for later on, I believe. But they are running a big risk by doing that, aren't they? There's every chance that they could go even further down than they are already.
Yeah, well, they're just losing time. What's this car doing? Waved by the pace car by accident. So just waiting for the pace car to catch back up.
Of course, taking its sweet time. Oh dear. Pace Syndicate Alice car still trying to extract itself from the barrier. Miles Bond should be given permission to tow back to pits very soon.
Is it making progress? I feel like it is.
Yeah, I think it's almost out of the barrier. But those that front right, I think, is making things a little difficult. It's still hooked on the other side of the concrete.
Self-recovering cars. Is that a thing that they feature in motorsport?
I think it could be, if technology keeps progressing like it is. I mean, we're already there in sim racing, aren't we? We've got cars at least making attempts. An infant's first steps are always faltering.
By the way, we haven't just bullied Sperry out of the box.
His internet has bullied him out of the box, unfortunately.
It did its job for us.
Oh, God.
No, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, so unfortunately we won't be having Jake Sperry back for the rest of our cast here this morning.
Still got a couple hours of coverage left. When we come back this evening, it'll be me again, sorry, as well as Brad Wingard, and again, apologies, Jake Kennedy, making up our commentary team. Hey, he's just cracked it and said I can do it myself. That's why I was asking if you were coming back, Chris.
Yeah. Oh, well, the meat cooked underground is calling me this afternoon.
Into the pit comes that car that finally got back behind the pace car to take its service. Looking at how this is shaken up the field, our new race leader is simrigs.com. No.
HBC.
Well, it does have Simrigs on the side, I'd like to point out. Matthew Cardellone. Oh,
righto.
Didn't see that. Didn't see that one coming.
How long has he been in the car?
He's done 50. He's on to his 55th lap. He's got to pit within the next 10.
They're going to lose out quite a bit, unfortunately. Likely to be pitting under green flag conditions, but that's the way it's worked out for them. They are carrying a bit of damage to the rear wing, as you can see as well, so it'll be an opportunity to get that thing repaired and hope for more safety cars and to try and work the strategy to get themselves back up there.
Just listening into race control in the background. It's like a sheepdog trying to take control of the cattle. Amy Johnston's gone by accident.
Oh dear.
There's a bit of confusion out there.
It is a bit like herding cats, trying to...
Herding cats?
Yeah. I would say herding cats. I mean, sheep can be at least compliant at times, but cats will often do whatever they want. And if you make a mistake, they will slip through. That's what's been going on here under this safety car period. The ERT 117 leading the GT4 class, meanwhile, and it's looking pretty good for them at the moment. They still have to keep an eye out for the Falcon Racing number 50, which is still some way behind. They're going to have to work their way through.
Did you mention there, sorry, that this is our new GT4 leader? Jake Maloney.
No, Brad Ryan is the leader in the ERT 117.
Sorry.
Jake Maloney
iRacing
taking over from Richard Hampstead.
iRacing lied to me.
Oh, yes. Yes, because iRacing's timing updates at the end of every lap, so sometimes, if you're looking at the wrong timing screen, you can get positions slightly wrong. But, nonetheless, that is the running order for the top two. It's ERT and TTR. The Falcon Racing number 50 is in P3 in class, and my goodness, they have quite a ways to go. They're still catching up to the rest of the field that are forming up behind the pace car, and well, as cars continue to be let by, I'm looking at the track map that I've got up on my screen. We've still got cars on Mountain Straight trying to work their way up to the queue here. Will we be able to get the safety car period ended soon? I'm not too sure.
It'll be next lap. We'll go green next lap, I do imagine. Certainly not this lap. HBC Racing from Vandervaal Sim Racing Car 36.
Goodness. The safety car. Yeah, our director having a big old giggle at that. The safety car having to veer to the left to let the Race on Oz BMW by. Benjamin Smith at the wheel.
Look who this has worked out well for. R1 Sim Sports back in the picture. They're now third. Reese Gasul at the wheel. Ulster C Sports. I'm a little surprised to see them still 7th. Cody Dice now in control. They've done a driver swap as well. But I expected them to probably be ahead of R1 Sim Sports. Cooper Murray for Falcon Racing into 5th. Taking over from Jared Filsell. So this safety car here has brought a lot of teams back into the top end who were a bit on the back foot earlier on. Remember, this car's already taken its spare car, the Falcon Racing number 69. They were at the back of the field.
Pitters in our GT4 field. Looks like TTR number 92 and Falcon Racing 50 have swapped positions, and there was almost contact there at the end of the pit lane. Remember, pit exit is closed when the field goes by. Nick Foster came to a stop. Jake Maloney almost rear-ended him. But the Falcon Racing McLaren, with a slightly better pit stop, they managed to move ahead of TTR, so that's a change for the podium in GT4. The RSR Esport BMW in the lane as well. Matt Bailey, it seems, taking over that car from Oscar Copa. Bailey has already done a couple of laps in that car, and they've been at a standstill for a little bit here. I'm hearing them rev up. They might be looking to get going soon.
Adam Wilson for Lessie Esports in the Ferrari. They're up into 4th. Daniel Edmonds drove that car through the opening 2 stints, and now Wilson's taken over. Willison, I should say, sorry. Sneaky I in there after the L's. And these guys have slowly worked their way up quite nicely. They started this race back in row 8 in 15th place.
not doing too shabbily at all is the Lacey Sports machine. Remains to be seen how quickly Cooper Murray, who's taken over the Falcon Racing number 69 from Jared Filsell, will work his way by. This is going to be Cooper's first green flag run in this car.
Oh, Coral F, you're killing us. They're extending the safety car period by a lap.
Yeah, it looks like the 102 GT4 entry, that's the HBAG Race on Oz car, currently making its way down Mountain Straight, so they're giving them a little bit more of an opportunity to catch up.
I mean, it came out of pit lane, so
yeah,
it's not really its fault. I think it... Yeah, probably could have gone this lap. Oh, well.
A little bit more of an opportunity for the drivers to fuel save.
From this, yeah, that's a very good point. Probably getting worse and worse, though, the HBC up at the front. Gonna have less and less time to pit once we go back green. With just about 10 hours to go, with 2 hours down, who's standing out to you at the moment as a real contender today?
In terms of the GT3 class, still looking at the Vendaval Sim Racing wide entry, the number 36. Unfortunately, they've lost the support of their sister car for the time being, but they're continuing to put on a great drive here, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Dylan Burse can do there, starting from second overall. Reese Gasol as well, going to get his first green flag laps in the R1 Sim Sports Ferrari, and I know that Reese Gasol is at least as fast as John Piesnik from past experience, so I'm looking forward to seeing what that car can do as well. But I think one of the biggest standouts has been the number 69 Falcon Racing entry. You know, after that incident on the first lap in turn 1, they've just been steadily working their way up through the field. Yes, they have been a bit aggressive about it, but it's worked out for them. Cooper Murray is carrying a slight bit of damage to the front right. From what I can see, that fender looks a little bent in, but that car should still be very pacey, and I think they're still in big contention for the win. In terms of GT4, well, I don't know who to call, really. I think everyone in the top 4 has been a standout there. Evolution 117, the R8G team, and Falcon Racing number 50. Not to mention the number 92 Trans-Tasman entry, Richard Hampstead, putting on some great drives there.
Yeah, the potential is there for Falcon Racing to win both classes. I believe they're probably the only real contender for that. Synergy Sim Racing could do it. They're currently running 6th in GT3 and I think 6th or 7th in GT4. Drop Band Motorsport, theoretically a chance, but at 42 laps down, I don't see that happening. Oh, and of course, Trans-Tasman Racing. We've got 2 entries in GT4, and the reason I didn't point them out is because they're back in 18th place in the GT3 class. And Michael Healy at the wheel at the moment, with Ross Rizzo and Emily Jones. Haven't seen Emily Jones at the wheel yet, but when we do, we know that car's probably going to go forward quite quickly. Michael Healy's a pretty good driver as well, so we'll see how they go from 18th. That's back where they started. So they've just held on, which is all you really need to do at the start of these long races.
The number 82 has made another visit to the lane. Nick Ludecki now 4 laps down on the rest of the field in that car. It looks like they're getting some more repairs done. And Paul Warwick brought the Fishy Motorsport number 8 back through the pits as well. It looks to me like that was some extra damage repair for that team. But we will be coming up to green flag pretty soon. Coming down Conrod Straight, it's going to be Matthew Cartellone who leads them.
HBC Racing, out of nowhere, leading this Logitech G Bathurst 12-hour. Expecting a pit stop from this crew within the next 7 laps in order to not exceed that maximum driver stint length. Dylan Burse will be hoping to make quick work of him. because Reese Gasul is only 1 lap car away from Vanderwaal Sim Racing White. Looking for the restart, our second restart of the day. We saw earlier on Josh Anderson choosing to go right on the apex of Murray's corner. Matthew Cardelone goes on the exit, waits just a little bit longer. A good restart nonetheless as we go back green at the mountain. Peasnick already flashing the lights, looking to get by Jason Cooper. Reese Gasul, sorry, not Peasnick. They swapped drivers, of course. Whoa, Cooper,
5-star.
a huge tank slapper for 5-star Motorsport as he grabs the grass on exit.
That's a 5-star recovery, I have to say. But now, Adam Willison will line him up coming into Griffin's Bend. And I wouldn't expect Cooper to fight these guys too hard. Remember, he is a lapped car right in the midst of all of the leaders, but he's going to make life difficult here for Cooper Murray and the Falcon Racing BMW. Not going to be able to get by just yet.
Well, he's only 1 lap down, and he's the first car a lap down. He doesn't want to lose too much time because he can still be well in contention for a strong result come the end of this race. So he's just got to make sure he doesn't harm himself too much while trying not to hold up these lead lap cars at the moment, because as we know, it doesn't matter if you're a lap down in these sorts of races, you can easily come back. As further down the order, looking at Trans-Tasman Racing with Synergy Sim Racing on their bumper. Michael Healy and Luke Rosella, those two drivers, into Forest Elbow. Glob of cars in front of them.
Yeah, quite the glob indeed. They'll be getting some good draft here.
Looking back at Altus Esports now from Adam Briggs's Synergy Sim Racing machine. And in front of them is Cooper Murray, still trying to get by Jason Cooper, and he can't do it.
In the background, Dylan Rudd makes a move on Scott Seslowski. Change for position between 9.5 and DPR. And here comes Altus. Cody Dythe diving up the inside of Adam Briggs at the final corner. Got that move done nice and cleanly, but
damage to that car too.
Yeah, they are carrying a couple of dents there to the left-hand side. Might affect their aerodynamic performance. We take a look back meanwhile at, oh, there's a car off at turn 1. Sebastian Flock has gone backwards into the runoff area. Actually looks to me like there was contact from behind. Henry Thomas Kircher in the Mach 1 333 tagged him on the way into Hell Corner.
No good. Bit of a sketchy rejoin too. Oh, well, looks interesting in the background as well. Over at turn 1. As Cooper Murray still sits behind the 5-star Motorsport Ferrari. He flashed his lights at him down the main straight. But I've got to say, Jason Cooper's doing a really good job. Ooh. Cody Dythe almost grabbed the fence there at Reed Park. Riding on board with Cooper Murray now.
He's starting to get frustrated here. Jason Cooper overshooting the entry into the dipper ever so slightly. This is costing the Falcon Racing team time. Not to mention, they've got Altus Esports right on their bumper, and they're allowing the likes of Briggs, Jackson Rihanna, and Warwick Sharp to catch back up. And the lights are flashing once again for Cooper Murray, saying to Jason Cooper, what are you doing, mate? Please let me by. But Jason Cooper not necessarily obliged to do that. The BMW is in the draft. It's going to go up the inside now into the chase, and Jason Cooper concedes the position there. Oh, parks it on the apex though, and that's resulted in a concertina. That's more damage for the Altus, number 43, and it's going to result in a change of position between Empower Summit and SSR Smith & Sons. Also getting in on this is Dylan Rudd in the 9.5 car. That's created a huge scrap.
Yeah, Cooper just tried to slot in behind Cooper Murray and tried to do so too quickly. Had to jump back on the brake pedal, and Cody Dythe caught completely unawares. Now Jackson Rihanna goes by. Dylan Rudd draws alongside up Mountain Straight. Behind them, Scott Seslowski and Adam Briggs are side by side. And here's the GT4 battle.
Oh, hello.
Top 3, Trans-Tasman versus Trans-Tasman and Falcon Racing. Nick Foster falls to 3rd. It's the Porsche that leads the 2 McLarens now.
Very tight battling there, and these guys are fighting for 2nd at the moment. The Evolution Racing Team 117 is quite far up the road.
As is Caleb Ives in the 888 car.
Yes.
Feisty nonetheless.
Yeah, that might have cost them a bit of time trying to catch up to their rivals. Oh dear, that was Cooper, I believe, getting into the gravel at Skyline, and that's created another check up behind.
Luke Rosella, Dennis Gatorick, they both go straight ahead at Skyline. At this point, Cooper should probably just get out of the way. His rear bumper's copped a big whack. I think he might have copped one. No? Oh, he grabbed the inside of McPhillamy Park. That's what shot him wide, but his rear bumper is looking very second-hand now.
Yeah, let's see how the diffuser is affected by that, whether or not the aero performance of this car has been compromised. It seems that way in a straight line as Scott Soslovsky tries to line him up, coming into the chase. Not able to get it done, though. Jason Cooper is still driving the wheels off that number 255, and it seems the drivers behind aren't too happy. I saw a headlight flash from Soslovsky there.
Yeah. You're well within your right as a laps car to fight, but generally, once someone gets alongside you, lift off and let them go. And there's been a few times where they've had overlap and Cooper's continued to fight it. And yeah, it'll be annoying a few of these drivers as the 333 Mark 1 car comes in. Henry Thomas Kircher at the wheel.
That's a penalty for the contact earlier with Sebastian Flock.
It's on for the lead of the race. HBC still out there, yet to make their stop. It needs to come in the next 4 laps. Matthew Cartalone was Dylan Burst all over him, and Reese Gasol for R1 Sim Sports right there as well. That's the real fight for the lead. It's Venderval and R1.
This could potentially give R1 a great advantage if Dylan Burst is held up any by Matthew Cartalone, but Matthew has been doing quite well to keep himself in the lead throughout this stint. There's every chance, too, that Dylan Burst might be saving a bit of fuel in the draft, which could help them for their strategy later on. But if they're trying to fight for track position at the same time, that would be a difficult decision to make.
BMW, Porsche, and Ferrari. Cool to see those 3 different manufacturers 2 and a bit hours into this one. Covered by about a second up Conrad Straight. Pronunciation. Not quite a strong suit there. As Burst just elects to continue to hold him behind him, and look how much Gasol closes up under brakes. Further back, Cooper's under threat again. Soslovsky looking to go the long way around at the chase. He'll do so. Adam Briggs will follow him on the brakes. And Cooper lets him go this time.
Yeah, that car is looking a little second-hand, as that's another position there for Luke Rosella in the number 89, just passing Blake Neck in the TriStar Racing 111 machine. But that fight for the lead continuing. Dylan Burst has not quite been able to gain much on Matthew Cartalone at this point, and the top 3 pretty evenly spaced as they come into Griffins for the 62nd time in this race.
Expecting somewhere around 300 tours of the cutting in this race.
And as we've seen, it only takes 1 tour of the cutting to completely change your race. We've had a few cars go off in that section of the circuit. It seems that Burst is very strong across the top of the mountain here. Cartalone is taking a bit of a wider entry into Sulman Park, but that's allowing him to keep the wheel a bit straighter across McPhillamy and Skyline. And again, it just seems that Venderval Porsche, very strong on the brakes, but that HBC BMW seems quite pacey when they get to the straights.
Yeah, well, being from 3 different manufacturers, they're going to have their strengths and weaknesses. And the BMW just has a lot of grunt underneath it, doesn't it? Goes well in a straight line. The Ferrari's got a very low profile. It's pretty slick in a straight as well. Porsche's very nimble across the top of the mountain.
Starting to see a bit of a slipstream happen there for Dylan Burse. He's going to go for the move at the chase, diving up the inside. Will he manage to pull it up? Looks like it. Just manages to get it done. Now it's going to be Rhys Gasol who has to try and negotiate Matthew Cartalone.
Pressure's on Gasol to make this happen quickly and not let Vendaval get away. Because there's an opportunity here to put some pressure on Dylan Burse. And Vendaval Sim Racing White, the 36 car, they haven't had too much pressure on them today so far. Not directly on the racetrack anyway. Strategy-wise, perhaps. Henry Thomas Kirch has copped another black flag. This time for contact with car 64. That's the Pure Chuka Toyota machine. Daniel Gaterick at the wheel.
Falcon Racing GT3 might be trying to line up another move shortly as we check out that number 64. Seems that the Pulsar Chuka Toyota entry not with much in the way of damage. I'm going to go back and check to see exactly what that incident entailed, but it's going to be on here between Lease Esports and Falcon Racing.
Adam Willison doing a really good job on this race side. He's only 5 seconds off the lead still. And keeping Cooper Murray behind him. Remember, Murray did get helped up for a while by Jason Cooper in the 5-star motorsport car. He'll be hoping to make quicker work of this Ferrari. So this one is for position. Cooper Murray, very experienced driver. Australian selection for the Porsche Junior Shootout in France. Didn't win that, unfortunately, but he came back and won a race at Mount Panorama in Carrera Cup Australia last time they went racing. And back on the mountain, back up into 4th place. Goes by Willison without too much fight from the Lessie Esports driver.
Very good move there from Cooper Webster, and I've just gone back to see that incident between Gaterick and Thomas Kircher. Remember earlier on we had that big heart attack moment when Jason Cooper and the 5-star Ferrari went into the gravel at McPhillamy Park, but we saw all the drivers checking up behind, and it seems that Thomas Kircher went in at full racing speed. My goodness, look at this battling here coming into
again.
Oh man, coming
Cooper
into
again.
Murray's corner.
This time though, that Mercedes on the inside, it's actually a car racing Cooper for position. So that's why he can't afford to give up too much time, because there's position to be lost right there. Both of them are aware of that and trying not to lift off too much, but the Mercedes of Sharp now has Kenneth Ladder looking to his inside at Griffin's Bend. Kenneth can't go deep enough on the brakes to make that happen, as Letchford thought about a move on Tyson Styles. Just behind them. So Daniel Misdale, the first car in this queue behind Jason Cooper. He's in 14th place in this race for Simrigs.com, car 73. Then comes Ethan Grigault for Evolution Racing Team. Then comes Warwick Sharp, the car fighting Cooper for position. Then comes Kenneth Ladder. And then comes Tyson Styles and Phil Letchford. Michael Healy at the very back of this train. Oh, he's got Rob Carmichael behind him. That's the back of the train.
We'll be right on board with Michael Healy in the Trans-Tasman BMW. They have lost a position off that last restart, unfortunately, but still plugging away as they have. Meanwhile, down at the chase, it seems that R1 Sim Sports have gotten by HBC Racing, so Rhys Gasol will filter through now into that third, or actually second spot. Getting stuck behind Cartalone as they did, though, that has cost them little bit to Dylan Burse in the Vendaval number 36. They currently lead by 1.7 seconds. Now, if you're Reece Gasol, do you drive as hard as you can and try to catch up, or do you back off? Try and preserve the car. Wait for another caution period if that comes around.
I don't know, but let's just keep an eye on this. It's lap 65 for Matthew Carnlow in the HBC Racing BMW.
Oh, yes.
Now, the rule is no more than 65. So
he's going to have to bring it in.
He has to hit this lap. Just seeing, make sure he does.
Yeah, otherwise there's going to be a quite large penalty, I would presume, being administered to that car. Well, Cartalone, not under much threat from behind. The top three broke away well and truly from the rest of the field. But they do have Cooper Murray in 4th place, setting some excellent times and working his way up towards the back of this top 3 battle. There's a slight bit of smoke up ahead of him. It looked like it might have been a lock-up for Reece Gasol, potentially.
Noticing as well that sun isn't much of an issue anymore. Over Skyline, they've all navigated that tricky period of the sun coming over the horizon. A little bit of damage to the right side of the wing on Cartalone's car. It wouldn't warrant a spare car.
Oh no, he's not going in. Uh-oh.
Lap 66. Penalty.
Yep, slam dunk. They are now in violation of the driver stint rules. Cartalone has...
Hang on. Maybe not.
Maybe?
Maybe not.
Maybe
But
not.
go back to the very start of the lap count. So lap 1, lap 2. Do they count? Okay, so the formation laps do count. So he is definitely in violation.
Alright. Well, hopefully someone gets onto them and lets them know what's going on, unless there's been an issue with trying to get drivers together for that car. Oh dear, the R1 SimSports Ferrari stuck behind one of the Race On All's GT4s there. We'll concentrate on these battles back in the field. Phil Letchford has broken away from Tyson Stiles, Rob Carmichael and Michael Healy. That TTR BMW trying its best to round up another position.
That battle for position between Cooper and Sharp is now line astern. Ahead of a couple of lead lap cars.
Yeah, definitely the Stone Cold racing car of Warwick Sharp right on the rear bumper of the 255 Ferrari. We stay on board here with the number 67 trying his best to find a way past, and you definitely see that back end damage you were referring to earlier, Ryan. That Ferrari must not be very fun to drive at the moment.
Luckily, being on the rear end, it shouldn't hurt his straight line speed too much. If anything, it might just make the air dirtier coming off the back of his car.
Have a look at the draft, though, for the Mercedes. Is he going to round him up coming into the chase? Straight line speed not where it needs to be for the 267. They are carrying a bit of damage to their front, as well as trying to find his way past there was Kenneth Latta. Not quite able to. Opens himself up to an attack as the HBC racing car finally makes its way into the pits, but I think too late as Brady Buchanan takes over. They will likely get a penalty thanks to exceeding 65 laps with one driver in the car.
And by the time he crossed the line, he had done 66 too, because he had crossed the line in pit lane. Keep an eye on that. See whether they escape, whether there's a subsection to the rulebook we didn't read. As side by side, Kenneth Latta finally makes that move on Jason Cooper. Not for position though. Phil Letchford was pounding the back of Kenneth Latta. He'll want to continue that by getting by just as quickly. Can't do so at the moment. We're riding aboard with Tyson Styles. He's got Rob Carmichael for company. And Michael Healy as well, just behind him. He's on the back of Phil Letchford. A group of cars. Haven't seen any GT4s getting lapped for a while. I think our GT4 field's been somewhat depleted a little bit by some of the incidents. Though I am seeing Burst picking off a couple of the back markers now. So, not too long, and this group will catch them.
Yeah, and that will likely spread them out and compress them in equal measure. Well, Burst will make his way past one of the Race on Oz BMWs at Murray's Corner. Nothing too out of the ordinary there, and then past the Falcon Racing number 50, back down into 5th place for that car. Still trying to fight with the Trans-Tasman number 77 for 4th, and TTR 77 some way ahead of them. You just saw them at the bottom of the frame there.
Only the 2 safety cars so far, almost 3 hours into this race, tracking pretty well in terms of safety car appearances. As we see car 42 being handed a drive-through for contact with car 923 back on lap 65.
And car 42 is this car on screen just ahead of our race leader, Scott Wooden, in the Twitchy Foot Racing 1 BMW. So they'll have just gotten news of that penalty. And they'll be a little distracted. Of course, no obligation to let the leader go in this section. But this would have to be aggressive. Oh, apologies, the 923 has gotten the penalty
Ethan
for that.
Grigold at Metal Grey.
Uh-oh.
Evolution Racing Team facing the wrong way.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, don't rejoin that.
Ooh. Take
Steady.
it easy.
Steady. Oh.
Oh, boy. That is a difficult place to go off for sure.
Difficult place to drive around him too, because you're offline. It's so easy to fire yourself into the fence driving around that car, but they've all done a good job. Here's the replay, thanks to Virtual Racing School. He was at the back of this sort of battle group of cars. I thought there was going to be a crash here. I was watching this live. Benjamin Smith just sneaking through, and then watch this. Grigold forces his way up the inside. I was very surprised there wasn't contact there. And I think he spun all by himself.
Let's have a look. Coming through Metal Grey, yeah. Rear end just went very light there for Ethan Grigold, and I think a very well-placed camera for that incident, but here is the attempted rejoin, and this was pretty lucky. Ethan Grigold, he had just enough time to get it flick-spinned before that next sequence of cars came around, but they would have had to compromise their lines slightly for that.
Interesting battle happening live between, well, starting with Reese Tamanuli. He got the grass on the outside, that's what started the spin. But Reese Tamanuli trying to hold off Sean Anton McLaughlin, Dennis Gatorek, and Brody Steen.
Quite the fight going on here. Iridium Simsports Blue leading this charge, and of course the purple and black Australia-wide racing purple machine. McLaughlin going to line him up for a move up the inside into Griffin's Bend, and this should be reasonably easy to complete if you're on the inside into that corner. Once again, the banking on the inside helps the car that makes the move, and as you like it, there goes Sean Anton McLaughlin up into 27th place.
Any relation, do we think? Probably not.
Probably not. There's plenty of McLaughlins out there.
Normally see Scotty in these sorts of events, but I think his move over to the US has put a stop to that for now, which is a shame.
Yeah, I miss seeing Scotty Mack in these events put on by Oceanic Sim Racing, making some V8 Scops appearances as well. Is Scott McLaughlin, but of course his move to the US to race in IndyCar full-time means that time zones aren't working out in his favour. Oh, Tamanui's just spun at Forest Elbow. Looks like the other cars have managed to escape that. The 826, though, having to get it going again on the exit of the elbow. He's stopped across the racetrack.
Oh, no.
Oh, dearie me.
He's got a big gap now.
It was well negotiated by Drew Orison. Just avoided clobbering the Iridium SimSports blue car.
He just got a little bit of oversteer on entry to the corner, and it carried the rear around quicker than the front end through the apex. Didn't hit anything. A little scrape on the wall as he tried to flick spin.
And that was
Lucky
RSR Esports getting by Torque Inc. for 25th, sorry.
Nothing, I just said it was a lucky escape.
Sam Stride is now in the Torque Inc. number 71, taking over from Ashley Lear. And it seems keeping things quiet and consistent. Yes, they've just lost a position, but doesn't mean all too much in the grand scheme of things.
Oh, this is a group and a half. Up the mountain, Damien Johnstone in a GT4. Then comes, well, a lot.
Yeah, look at this. Goodness me. They got Adam Willison there, who's in 4th place, making his way past at Forest Elbow. Drivers giving each other space, nice and clean. And the fellow SSR Smith & Sons car in the GT3 class making his way by just as cleanly. But they're going to have a long line of GT3s to work with here. There's the battle between XCM, Stone Cold Racing, and the Crisscross car. They work that out all right. Lockhart
in the
Brownlee.
grass, on the brakes.
Oh dear, Lockie. Oh.
Wow. He's just pulled it up without smashing into the back of those cars in front.
Goodness me. And it looks like GT4 2 wide behind. Look out, everybody. 3 wide behind. Sebastian Flock getting it done round the outside. And unfortunately, Michael Healy boxed in here. There's not much he can do.
Oh. Michael Healy thought about making it 4 wide then, and then thought better of it. Oh, he gets into the back of Jason Cooper, moves the lapped car out of the way. And they've called race control over it. That's a bit stiff.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just a consequence of the chaos that erupted there, thanks to those 2 GT4s.
It's
and
not
the guy
going to
who
get
really,
easier.
no, certainly not.
Nick
the guy
Foster.
who got boxed in was Rob Carmichael.
Yeah. Oh, no. Turned around at the cutting, right in front of Nick Foster.
Oh,
rolling
no.
almost back onto the racing line. And turned around Sebastian Flock. Well, he would have been turned around, but he got pointed the right way by the car that was already spun there. Now there's damage to the Jinx Shifter's car. It's going slowly. So is Sebastian Flock. Jason Cooper's trying to get back by. It's all kicked off.
Absolutely it has. Those 2 GT3s, the SSR 27 and Adam Willison in the Lease Esports car. Oh dear.
What a save from Brownlee.
Seb Flock has got big damage in the pursuit car. He's crabbing apparently. We'll go back and
And he
check out this
spun
incident.
at the exit of the dipper.
Oh dear, could this be another safety car? These guys were making their way past the Falcon Racing 50 McLaren, and into the back of Kenneth Latta goes Adam Willison. Both of those cars spinning, and Latta not in the best of spots there as everyone tried their best to negotiate that. Flock was already trying to pass a GT4 at the time.
This was awkward. 2 slow cars. Oh.
Oh dearie me, and see how much left hand down Sebastian Flock has got. It's not just because he's turning left at the moment. That car has its suspension screwed at the moment.
And then Brownlee fired off the road in front of him. behind him somewhere. There we go.
Goodness, went airborne over the curb. How did he hold on to that?
That's what I reacted to live. I thought he was flipping for all money, and around goes Phil.
Yeah, car already heavily damaged from that initial contact, and no surprise to see the number 5 in the pits. The safety car has not been called. No one requiring a tow, at least not yet, but that's a big blow to Pursuit Sim Racing.
Still, decent group of GT3 cars going to have to navigate some GT4 traffic soon. Nick Foster's still ahead of them all after all that. And then there's a couple of Tasman cars. Aaron Gilbert in an awkward spot right now. We're looking back from Nick Foster. He's just up the road from that. He's got Rob Carmichael, Josh Mertens, Cameron Dance for company right now. Ahead of him, the next group of GT4 cars that they've got to catch is Lee Ellis, Caleb Hydes, and Jake Maloney.
This is the battle for second in GT4. The R8G crew sitting there in third and sandwiched between the two Trans-Tasman entries. News, meanwhile, from race control. The Lease Esports car, 135 Adam Willison, has been given a black flag for that penalty with Kenneth Latta. So, race control right on that. And it looked like a bit of a slam dunk penalty there, going straight into the rear of a car coming into the cutting.
Ooh. McLaughlin, can he split the difference between the two GT4 cars? No, he doesn't want to. Gilbert backs out, lets the GT3s go. Mogridge stays on the outside, and then lets him go in the braking zone. Almost drove into the side of Gatoric there. The Pulsar the Toyota.
And in goes the Lease Esports Ferrari into the pits to serve that penalty.
Goal getting by Daniel Mearsdale there.
That car's on a recovery, that ERT26. Remember, Gridgold had a spin a little earlier, so they're on the back foot trying to work their way back up. They do have 2 more cars for position up ahead. Josh Mertens for Team JDR and Cameron Dance, who's taken over the drop bear in Cosi number 692 Porsche.
Battle for 23rd on your screen. They're going to catch Nick Foster on this lap, who's already got Matt Bailey and Matthew Brunt behind him.
Yeah, these drivers are going to be losing a lot of time across the top of the mountain. Nick Foster putting the McLaren exactly where he needs to prevent those GT3s from getting by. Will they be able to get him at Skyline? These guys have caught right up to them. It's not going to happen at Skyline, so this bunch of GT3 cars have all been crushed together now, coming onto Conrod Straight.
It wasn't long ago. It wasn't long ago I said we haven't lapped any GT4 cars for a while. Well, suddenly we're lapping them all at once, multiple times.
Yeah, there's almost always some kind of fight going on to get by slower class cars. Look at this draft, meanwhile, from Matt Bailey. That RSR BMW looking very pacey in a straight line, and Matthew Brunt will let him go coming into the chase. Meanwhile, the rear of that GT3 pack, Dennis Gatorick and Henry Thomas Kircher, they've made their way past Nick Foster on the way into the chase. So these GT3s ready to race on for quite some time more. The next GT4 car is the 77, which has just exited turn 1 now. Oh, and look at this. After the penalty for the 135, they are back on track with the car that they spun around. They are ahead of them though, so not much chance of another rear end from the Ferrari at least.
Cameron Dance just got by in his Droplow Motorsport and Cozy car the remaining GT4 cars of Maloney and Caleb Hides, but Ethan Grigol gets him on the exit of the cutting. Thought he was going to get caught there, but he's done a good job.
This is such a tight battle, isn't it?
Yeah, this group's going to catch him very soon. Caleb Hides, Jake Maloney, and Lee Ellis. I think they might catch him at the bottom of the mountain, which will be good news for this group.
Yeah, those GT4s are still quite a ways ahead as they enter the run to Forest Elbow. Might just come up on Lee Ellis coming into the chase. Have to wait and see. Actually, looks like Ellis is quite a ways ahead in that Trans-Tasman 77. You'll probably see him just pop into view there in the distance.
It's going to get busy even without the GT4s. McLaughlin trying to take the inside. Gatorick trying to push Sam Stride. Oh, that was close.
Very late on the brakes for McLaughlin. He's going to take Stridey around the outside.
Very nice. Great move from Australia Wide Racing Purple. Oh, that's stiff. That's stiff.
Very.
The 105, which is HPC Racing, has been, well, it's going to be disqualified from this race, effectively.
They've been ordered to retire for exceeding the maximum stint length.
Not sure I agree with that.
I think a lapse penalty may have been sufficient as well.
They exceeded by 1 lap. Now you're out of the race. Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Well, that is the decision, unfortunately, and the 105 is going to have to sit in the pits for the rest of the race now. They're already in there, so that's
it's a shame.
Yeah, it is. Would have liked to have still seen them compete as that as a move there in the 89 at the chase. Oh.
Can we go to the top of the map? Henry Thomas, that group of Kircher, Stride and co, they've caught the GT4s. At Skyline, no, Kircher, no. He thought about a move around the outside just behind this Australia Wide Racing purple car. There you go. Got Lee Ellis. Camped on their front bumper.
Yeah, they're going to have to wait until the exit of Forest Elbow to try and get by him here. That's cost them quite a bit of time. Kircher, Stride and Steen in one of the very few Mercedes in this field. And that's the gap now. It goes to show you what coming up on a GT4 in the S's can do. Just up ahead of them, McLaughlin and Gatorick making their way past Caleb Hides in the R8G car. Just managed to get it done at the chase.
And Maloney next on the list for them. Brunt gets by. McLaughlin will have to wait till after Murray's corner. As the 951 car hands over the range to Dylan Rudd. And is going to rejoin right in the thick of the action.
Right in this group that is continuing to stay together. That might have been an unsafe entry back onto the racetrack for Dylan Rudd. I'll have to double check that. Looks like he might have just gotten away with it. Only just. He did have his 2 right side wheels briefly on the racetrack, but he crossed that purple line, which in iRacing denotes the pit exit, after which you can blend back onto the racetrack. Oh, Synergy versus Altus. Awesome move there for Luke Rosella. Just rounded up Cody Dythe in a straight line. Right through in the chase. So that's Synergy number 89 on a roll now.
Gap at the front of the field. It's 1.7 seconds from Dylan Burse in car 36 for Vendaval Sim Racing. leading from Reese Gasul and R1 Sim Sports. It's 8.6 seconds back to Cooper Murray at Falcon Racing. And then these two cars of Luke Rosella for Synergy Sim Racing, Smith & Sons, ahead of Logitech G, Altus Esports. That's your top 5 at the moment, covered by 18 seconds, those 5 cars.
Meanwhile, your top 5 in GT4, excuse me, Evolution Racing Team 117, Brad Ryan leading the way of that class. In second place is the Trans-Tasman Racing 92, 21 seconds behind them at the moment. And then Caleb Hydes completing the top 3, very close behind Trans-Tasman 92. Meanwhile, the Falcon Racing number 50 in 4th with Damien Johnstone driving the SSR Smith & Sons Racing 14 in 6th place overall. In the GT4 class, sorry. Good old Gardner Gaff.
Looking at Paul Warwick here for Fishy Motorsports. He's got Marcus Konitska behind him for Pace Syndicate. And they're just navigating the 2 GT4s of Maloney and Hydes. Caught them out straight. Pretty happy with that, they'll be. It's calmed down just a little bit now since that frenzy a couple of laps ago, as the leading group of GT4 cars all got caught at the wrong time by some big GT3 groups.
This battle.
Toyota, yeah.
Yeah, it's still going on here for 20th place. That Pulsar Chuka Toyota's BMW, sorry, has been on the back foot as of recent, but that's a good exit from Forest Elbow for them. They're probably going to line up Synergy coming into the chase here.
Let's see if they can pull it off. Wheel to wheel in towards the chase over the crest. And Matthew Brunt just bleeds out of the throttle and lets Gatoric go through, not willing to risk going side by side at 270 kilometers an hour. Dylan Rudd now with an invitation to pick up a spot for 9.5 Sim Sport. That front end looking slightly worse for wear, and I believe they've already taken the spare car, so they'll be hoping to try to limit any further damage to that car over the next 9 hours and 15 minutes.
Up ahead, meanwhile, Gatoric negotiates the GT4 leader. And that is our GT3 leader as things stand. Still pounding out those lap times, and over the curbs is Dylan Burse. He's put in a magnificent stint so far, and it seems that Vendaval Sim Racing White definitely the main contenders for victory today. They will still have to watch out for the R1 Sim Sports squad. Reese Gasul is managing to keep himself within a reasonable gap of the leader.
So, as we reach the 3-hour mark of our coverage, we'll take a look at the standings at the moment. Vendaval Sim Racing, R1 Sim Sports, Falcon Racing, number 69, Synergy Sim Racing, Car 89, and Altus Esports, your top 5. Empower Summit, Synergy Sim Racing, 88, Simrigs.com, DPR, 233, TriStar Racing, 111, and Velocity Sim Labs make up your top 10. 41 seconds covering those 10 GT3 cars at the moment, Reese.
Just outside of the top 10, it's looking like a close battle brewing between XCM and Trans-Tasman Racing 184. That car has worked its way up nicely to 12th position. Not too far back to what looks like an interesting battle between the Fishy Motorsports 808 and Evolution Racing Team 26, who are still recovering from a spin. Drop Bear and Kosi 692 rounds out the top 15. Then we've got the Simrigs.com DPR number 73 with Daniel Misdale at the wheel. Jason Harmsworth plugging away in the Jinx Shifters 209 in 17th. RSR Esports, they had just made that move on the Pulsar Chuka Toyota entry, but Team JDR is catching them up for 19th. Pulsar Chuka Toyota rounding out the top 20 overall.
Synergy Sim Racing 14395, Sim Sports 21st and 22nd, Australia Wide Racing, Talking and Flame Energy through to 25th. Fishy Motorsports and Synergy Sim Racing 27, 26 and 27th. Nice synergy there with car 27. Iridium and Lesser Esports and Crisscross make up the top 30. Pretty sure those three just changed as I said that.
Yes, Lease Esports is now the first car a lap down. Pursuit Sim Racing number 5. Well, they've actually made up the position just then on Lease Esports. They've moved up into 30th, so it is Lease Esports 31st as it stands. LL Racing, Mach 1 333, Twitchy Foot and Stone Cold Racing top 35. And by the time we get to our GT4 field, it's going to be 9.5, 9.52, 5-Star Motorsport and Pace Syndicate, all of those cars having issues. But it is ERT, Evolution Racing Team, leading the way in your GT4 class. Trans-Tasman Racing, number 92, Jake Maloney at the wheel, a few corners behind as things stand.
Caleb Hides for RHG Guest, 888 and third in class, ahead of Trans-Tasman Racing 77. Little surprised to see Falcon Racing 50 back in 5th at the moment. And then Race on Oz, or Synergy Sim Racing 14 ahead of HBAG, Harvey Autoglass, Race on Oz. Venival Sim Racing 82 are back there, trying to work their way back up the order after they stayed in pit lane for a long time and they're 4 laps down. And I'm really not sure if they'll recover from that. Team Jinx Shifters 52, Analytical, Race on Oz, Taipan Esports, and HBC Racing, your top 50. And Taipan Esports is the last car running. HBC have been forced to retire. Team Jinx Shifters 51 and Drop Play Motorsport SPM, 32 retirees from crash damage so far. So that brings us to the end of our opening 3 hours coverage of the 2022 Logitech G OSR Bathurst 12-hour. If you really want to keep watching this race, go and log into iRacing and you can watch the session there. Otherwise, we'll be back for the final 3 hours later on today at 5 PM Australian Eastern Standard Time, 6 PM Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Hopefully we see you all then. For this segment though, from myself, Ryan Jones, Jake Sperry, Reese Gardner and Jay Kennedy, thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you later on.